Clobberin time! Clobberonimo!
Clobberonimo! Greetings, clobberers and clobberonimos and clobberoids and clobberooskies and whatever kind of clobbery thingy you might be. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here for Monday night Mark C. Comics Talk, celebrating Super Month and celebrating in the best kind of way, because I'm celebrating it with my great friend Michael French from Retroblasting. Yes, indeed. I'm so excited to have him back. We've been having so much fun doing shows together over the years. And here we have Clobberin Times number 523 on YouTube, 1,223 overall. And I cannot wait to get started. Thank you so much for being here, my friends. And thank you, Michael, as always, buddy, my good friend. It is great to have you back, bud. Thank you.
It's always great to be here. This is like taking a vacation, and I mean that in the best way possible. I always like being on Clobberin Time, so I'm just always glad when you have a topic and you ask me if I want to come on. So I can't wait to spend the next few hours with you,
dude. I can't wait. And like I said, I always want to make sure I have something for. I mean, like I said, you could come in and we could just do open stuff and we'd always find something to talk about. But I always like to have something for you, that is I don't know. I just feel look, you are a busy man. And I know you are. I mean, so
well, I'm only busy because I end up having to do everything 3 times over.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Busy's busy, whatever. And we got some got a lot of friends. We got a couple of super chats. Let me deal with those.
Sure.
Firstly, real quick, Troy Pacelli for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you. Good to see you there, buddy. He says, pre-crisis is my jam. I had the original World of Krypton and novel-sized reprint and the oversized Fortress of Solitude Soups versus Ali. Hang on a second. Throat messing up there. Troy, got them all myself too. Love them. Great to hear that. We're going to have some fun because pre-crisis is also it's my happy place when it comes to DC Comics. And Kay Burns, I don't think I've seen you here before. Thank you, Kay Burns, for that. I appreciate the super chat, and great to see you. Great to meet you. He says, which do you prefer, Superman flying with one arm out or two? I've never been asked that question.
I would say that I always considered it the way Superman steers. So if so like 2 arms out is straight out, and then 1 arm on either side is like the way he uses a rudder. So
that works.
It's all necessary, but I think artists across the decades have had some really, really good images of him in both poses. So
that works for me. Yes, because you know what? But I do love the question just because it's not something I've ever thought about before.
Yeah.
Great question there, Kay, and it's good to meet you. Good to have you here, Kay, and good to have you all here tonight. Let's see. Quick show notes and shout outs are coming up now. Show notes are basically Wednesday night. I'm still not sure what's going to happen. It's wild card Wednesday, as you know. Last Monday, I had to put off this show. Carlos couldn't make it. hopefully this Wednesday night. Maybe I'm going to try to get him to schedule for this. It's a Clobby's Classic Comics Review, Superman Annual, number 11, a masterpiece by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons for The Man Who Has Everything, one of the greatest ever. I hope to get that review done next week, but if not, we may have to put it on. I mean, either this Wednesday or the following. I hope so, but it's going to happen, folks. I hope it happens in Superman month, but we will see for sure. And then, of course, it is Superman month next week. A week from tonight, it'll be the big Superman bash. I think Minimus and maybe Loki will join me. We'll just basically do our usual Superman birthday party. So, and then, of course, there's the clubhouse on Thursday night as well. I should be on Midnight's Edge After Dark, but Tom and the gang on Tuesday and Thursday, as always, 6 p.m. Central. And hopefully Nick and the Comic Shop gang, 8:30 on Friday night as well. So I'm all over the place. And then, of course, Saturday night Star Trek. Having such a great time. What a great time we had this past week. And there will be 4 more episodes reviewed by me and my wonderful First Officer Commander, R.M. Briggs. And thank you all for who joined us on Saturday night. What a great time that was. Great to see you all here. And let's see. I want to shout out my fantastic wrenches. They always do such a wonderful job and help me out. And I don't deserve them. I'm not worthy, but I shout them out whether they're here or not tonight. They're usually here. The great Eric K., the bronze wrencher. Appreciate you, buddy. The great Vindicated Wrench of the North, Chris Persia. The D. Bud Martin, the Wrench of Iron. Lord Thought, the God of Wrenching, and hail to Lady Thought as well. Avon lives, and long live the Legion, my brother. My partner in crime on Earth, B, the Wrench Without Fear, the great J-Man. Good buddy, man. I'm having so much fun hanging out with you. Thanks for helping me review the tough stuff, the Bob Haney years. Master the Claboni, Hungry Boy, official artist of Clobberin Time, and artist of the cover of Science Fiction Tales by R.M. Briggs. Super Wrench, Kal-El, Railed of Wrench, Mjolnir, and of course that old rascal Fanty Outsider. So thank you guys, and let's see who is. Let's see. Oops. Let's shout out anybody else who was here with us tonight.
You got a new super chat.
I did. Oh my goodness. Let's see. I'll let me find that. Where are you? Oh, there we go. Oh, Scott Knudsen. Thank you so much, Scott. I don't know if I've seen you here before, but it's great.
Scott Knudsen is a long-standing Retroblasting supporter and a massive Marvel Comics expert. He has a massive collection going way back. He's a comics dude, like a legit one.
Oh, excellent. Well, Scott, it is a pleasure to meet you, man. You hang around here with us more, buddy, because we love talking. I do every Monday night, do comics. And it's great to meet you. And I thank you for that kind super chat. You're very generous, and I appreciate you. He says, as a Marvel zombie, my only real exposure to Superman was the outstanding crossover with Spidey in that Treasury edition. But any book Ross Andrew penciled can't be all bad, so I'm here to hear about it. That very first Superman Spider-Man team up, Scott. Back when that first came out, I remember seeing the ads for it. I'm that old. I'm very old. It was the bicentennial, and I was 12 years old. Good God. Michael, that comic was the most. I don't know if I've ever gone more nuts over any kind of comic book that I ever bought in my life than that one. Of course, I love Treasury editions.
Sure.
And when I would see the ads, I think when we were seeing the ads, I don't think I realized it was going to be a Treasury edition, right?
Yeah.
And finally, when I realized it wasn't going to be on a spinner rack, we had to go to the magazine rack at the drugstore. It was $2. Oh my God. And dude, Superman and Spider-Man, my mind was ripped to pieces. I couldn't believe that was even possible.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, I just no way, man. This past summer, Scott, I believe. I think it was just either. Yeah, I think it was my good buddy. I think it was Ace Cast Iron and I reviewed this comic. Every now and we do something called the Clobby's Classic Comics Review here, where we show you the whole comic and break it down. And we had a fantastic time reviewing that comic book. We're going to review the second Superman Spidey team up pretty soon. So that was a lot of fun. And again, I thank you for that, sir. I really appreciate that.
There's a comment here from Melinda saying drawing Superman with icing is certainly a challenge. And just to make this comic complete, she's referring to the cake she made 2 years ago with the vintage Wilton Superman cake pan. I am going to bring this up as my avatar, which was the cake she made with
Oh, nice.
yeah. So
Oh my goodness, icing soup. There you go. He's the icing on the cake. Love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well done, him.
She hand did the face too. It came with a plastic face. The original cake came with a plastic face, and Melinda, with her typical artist attitude, she was like, this thing sucks. I can draw it better than this. And she broke out Kurt Swan
Nice
artwork and did that. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love you, Melinda. That's fantastic. Great stuff. Great stuff. Wow. Let's see. I'm going to shout everybody out really quick who's here with us in the chat, just because we like to holler at everybody who shows up with us. I know there's a lot of fantastic people here tonight, so it's tough to get them all, but we'll try. Of course, Tim Hayes, good to see you there, my friend. Thank you for being here. Largo's Lair, your Muslim uncle. Hey, buddy. Godzilla Master 84. Your Old Toys, what's up, young man? Good to see you. He's a big fan of yours. Your Old Toys is a cool young feller. He is what we hope the next generation comes up to be like, because he loves his Star Wars toys, and he's a big Retroblasting fan, as are we all.
Oh, very kind. Very kind.
Yes, please shout out Your Old Toys, because he's a big fan. I told him I would get you to say I'd get you to say hello to him, because he's a big fan of yours.
Well, I'm saying hello right now. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely, ishness. Guagnar, Laser Pants. Let's see here. Scott Hughes. Let's see. It kind of the thing jumped on me, everybody, so I apologize. I'm having trouble with my StreamYards chat. Claude Salling, Matthew Pounder. All right, Brian Hepburn. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. The great hungry boys here, but I have shouted you out already. And let's see here. Okay, I think I got most of everybody. Dave G. Sound, good to see you there, bud. Appreciate you. Let's see. We like to get everybody. We don't like to miss anybody, but they slip through sometimes where I can't see them. Netters Network, Whether They Love, good to see you. All right. So, Superman. Oh, wait. I forgot one. We have a members chat. The great Mark D with a C has passed his own. Thank you, dude. He says, hail to your master, Michael Friends Retroblasting, says Tim Hayes.
Tim Hayes he's a good friend. He's a good long time friend of the channel for sure.
Yes, indeed. He is a great feller, and good to see you there, Tim. Oh, yes. Good evening, Clobberin Time, says Kenny Long. Hello, Kenny Long. Says, and Michael, going to bed soon. Been working harder than a government mule. Enjoy your chat. Take care, everyone's hugs, because the world needs more hugs. Well, Kenny, it is nice to meet you. And yes, indeed. Hugs. Why not? Geek hugs, of course. Manly geek hugs to you, sir.
That's right.
Let's see here. Dave, what's up, Dave? And of course, it's so great to see Melinda out there. Love you, Melinda. Miss you big time. And all right, so thank you all for being here with us tonight. Superman, another one of many things you and I have in common are, hey, the Comic Relief Crusader, good to see you there, buddy. One of the many things you and I, Michael, have had in common over the years. You've grown up as a fan of the character, as have I.
Yes. I've said it many times. I will never know which of these two superheroes crossed the finish line first as my first superhero. It was either Superman or Spider-Man, but if whoever won it, as far as awareness, was by a nose. But I loved them both, and the only I think the thing that almost made Superman more special for me, and he edged out for me in many ways, was he was also literally like a preschool kid. I had to be Superman for Halloween. Like, I never did Spider-Man for Halloween. I did Superman. And I've still got my Superman blanket from when I was a kid that has all the great Garcia Lopez artwork on it.
Nice.
You can barely tell through the way that the cheap wool has kind of napped up a little bit, but you can still make it out. But of course, the Super Friends cartoon, the Christopher Reeve films, and just really, I didn't get to read the comics for a long time, not because my parents denied me, but because when you're a little kid, you kind of rely on cartoons and stuff like that. But there were Superman bound volumes, not archive editions, but they were like, origin story comics that were kind of for young readers that were in my school library that I could check out. And they were comics, like and I would check those out all the time and read those. And they were all pre-crisis. Like this was all like the early 80s. So my idea of Superman was formed very early in a pre-crisis world. Now, granted, in the grand scheme of a lot of people's experience with Superman, I only had a biscuit minute of years compared to other people in the pre-crisis world. But as you know, Mike, Superman, especially in his original form, is an indelible icon. He immediately makes an impact on young minds. And so when they started switching up the Superman mythos, I was aware of it because I saw that redone cartoon in 87 or 88, whenever that was, the Ruby Spears.
Yeah, Ruby Spears.
Yeah. And as much as I loved seeing the Christopher Reeve theme at the beginning, I was kind of like, what's going on? Why is Lex Luthor now like a businessman? Like, why?
That was Byrne propaganda. That was Byrne drivel.
Yeah. And I was used to Lex Luthor being a mad scientist with his green power armor and all that stuff,
and a revolving door on his jail cell.
Yes, right. And I was used to the many incarnations of Brainiac. I was aware of when he was just like this green alien dude, and then when he became like this Terminator looking thing and all that kind of stuff. And so like all of this was very, very jarring. And what made it weirder was not to put too much emphasis in this stream on the crisis transition, but the last Superman movie, Superman 4, came out after the crisis thing had already started or happened or whatever. So I was still going to the theater seeing what I felt was classic depictions of Superman, as bad as Superman 4 was. All right. But Chris Reeve was always great in the role. And I was like, wait a second. So are there now like Superman in the comics doesn't match up as a silhouette now with Superman in the films? I know the films always did their own thing, but the character and the overall tone and everything still felt like it had a synergy with the classic comics. And now it was just kind of like, okay, what are we doing again? All right, whatever. I didn't outright hate it as a child. I was confused. And so when I started collecting the comics in the 90s, I got even more confused because I wanted to get into this character, and suddenly he was dead, and then he had a mullet, and then he became like energy beings, and there was all this stuff going on. And I collected, Mike, I've told you this, I collected and backfilled. I collected everything from the Crisis Point all the way through every special, every title, every issue of Superman I had from the 1986 John Byrne relaunch all the way through 2007 or 8 unbroken. And by that point, I was really getting frustrated because they knew that all of this wasn't keeping up with itself. In other words, all of these post-crisis attempts to continually change the costume or take away a power or do this or do that, it didn't have any legs after the first 8 years or whatever it was. And so I realized I was reading the same Superman stories every 8 to 12 months. Like they would just keep recycling a new spin on the same story. And the prices were going up, and they were bringing the pre-crisis elements back into the mythology, trying to retcon all of the lore back. So they were like suddenly trying to erase the John Byrne Krypton and bring back the pre-crisis Krypton in these clunky ways. And that was during the whole like Jeff Loeb era and stuff. And I was going, what are they doing? And so what I started doing was I started just really focusing on collecting as much pre-crisis stuff as I could, because that's what I recognized. The Kurt Swan, the Garcia Lopez artworks, that was the Superman that I knew from Genesis, meaning my personal Genesis. And I started collecting the archive editions. I really fell in love with Golden Age Siegel and Schuster Superman. I'd always loved the Max Fleischer cartoons. And that's how I handled it. I just went back and I gave away all of those post-crisis comics. I gave all of them.
Oh yeah, I remember when weren't they a prize?
The Man of Steel, the Superman
Man of Steel prize.
Yeah, that was a prize. And then the other 3 titles plus all the specials were all just handed to a guy that was part of the moving company that helped us move into this house.
Oh wow.
I tried to sell them, but nobody wanted them, and I can understand why. So it was I don't want to keep carrying these things around. I'm a pre-crisis Superman guy all the way. And again, I'm not saying that there weren't some good things or good stories throughout that 1986 to pre-New 52 era, but they didn't. How do I put this? They didn't enthrall me, and so I was able to let them go. But I'm never going to let go of my archive editions. I'm never going to let go of my Kurt Swan comics, like that were drawn by him. I'm never going to let go of my Bronze Age stuff. I'm not going to let go of any of that, because to me, when I see that Superman, like the way they drew his cape, the way it hung on his neck, right around his neck, the way Superman always looked, the way he flew, the way he dealt with villains, all of that stuff, which is it's so hard to summarize in a few sentences, but there was a specificity to it that they subtly at first and then majorly got away from by the time the early 90s had rolled around. And there is a tangible difference. Like, I'm not saying that certain writers in the post-crisis world didn't respect the character more than others. There were a lot of writers in the post-crisis world that really respected and understood the character, but they were working in a completely different set of parameters and a new continuity at that point. So they were kind of forced onto a set of rails that they probably would have preferred not to be on. You know, when you talk about All-Star Superman, for example, a lot of pre-crisis pre-crisis guys love All-Star Superman, and for very understandable reasons. But it was a special, you know, it wasn't. I
love it.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm rambling.
No.
I'll hand this over to you at this point. But
no, buddy. I'm getting it. That's why I asked the questions. And hey there, Picasso and Rami Salami. Hello there, welcome. And welcome. You know, let's see here. Oh, Eric K, what's up, bro? So, pre-crisis Superman is the only one that I truly. I mean, it's the only. And again, I know when you say that, you're encompassing Golden Age and Silver Age and Bronze Age, and there's some slight differences here and there. But see, I grew up with a Superman who was Superboy when he was a boy,
right?
And that's because that started in the Golden Age. And my first, as I talk often, my first exposure to Superman and other superheroes is TV. In this case, the original Filmation animated series from the 60s. And that one, Superman and the Superboy cartoons. So, you know, and then later George Reeves, and of course Super Friends and so on. Then of course comics,
right?
And it's kind of pre-crisis Superman is my happy place with the character. Anything after that, well, All-Star Superman was a throwback to it. Alan Moore Supreme was a throwback to it under a different name. Beyond that, I can't tell you very many things to do with Superman that I care about. In terms of, I mean, has there been a good comic here and there? I guess. I mean, I tried reading it for a while later, After Byrne did it, I stopped. But I don't know if I even told you, but I was happened to be married to a woman that read Superman comics and was very terribly, in my opinion, indiscriminate about what she read. So when I would go get my new comics, I had to buy her all the post Byrne drivel. Ace
Right.
Cast Iron, what's up, buddy? My good friend. So I'd have to have that in my house, and I would look at that and go, ugh, crap, and I would make fun of it and tease her for reading it.
Right.
But to me, the pre-crisis Superman is Superman for me, and everything before 1986 is the real deal Superman to me. Keely Chow, whatever, roll tide, buddy. Everything after that, like I said, I just don't really. It just doesn't feel like the same character to me. None of it does. I love him as the Boy Scout. It's
right.
where he means the most to me, and I love Christopher Reeve, of course. His movies only has one. Like to me, he only has one great movie. The other ones are problems.
Yep.
But he's still great in them.
Agreed. Yeah. You watch the other films for Chris. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's still great.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Superman to me is represented on a comic book page and of course in animation. But he's a comic book character first and foremost. And always will be. So with a lot of people, Joe Public, and you can't blame him really. When you say the word Superman, they'll say, "Oh, Christopher Reeve," or "Oh," them, and younger people might say Henry Cavill. They might say, they'll name actors.
Mm-hmm.
To Joe Public, if you say Superman, they're going to talk about an actor. When I hear, and they're going to not just Superman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, you name it. Now, when you name any character that originated in comic books that has achieved any amount of notoriety in film or other medium, it's just human nature. They're going to always just default to, oh, this actor. But this is not the way I see it. When I think of the character, I think of the comic book version first.
Yep.
And therefore, when I think of Superman, I go back to the beginnings and I think of Joe Shuster, Wayne Boring,
mm-hmm.
Kurt Swan, the great Kurt Swan. Look
Yeah.
at that. That's my favorite comic book iteration of Superman.
Yeah, the Kurt Swan is what I think of too.
Yeah, it's my favorite, but I do love Neil Adams, who really didn't very little interior work on him, but still, the covers are great. And Gil Kane, and of course, the great Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Yeah,
even Perez, who didn't do a lot of but again, when I see these, even when I look at Alex Ross doing throwback to old Superman, to the old stuff, that's what I take away. That's what I think of when I think of Superman. And it's just so many great moments and memories for me. Anyway, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that I've always gotten. There was a time, I shouldn't say constantly, but there was a time where I used to get eye rolls from people because I would always say that it's not Superman for me unless he's got the yellow S on the back and he's got his trunk.
Yes.
And they would all be like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because that's what Superman literally looked like that." Like in the 90s when they got obsessed with not animating in the animated shows the yellow S ever, and the action figures stopped having the yellow S on the back because it just couldn't be bothered with. It was like, this is weak sauce. Like this is not doing the character justice. This is not, I'm with you. Like when I think of Superman, the first thing I think of is Kurt Swan, Lopez. I also, of course, think of Siegel and Schuster because I am a devotee of Golden Age Superman. I think Golden Age Superman was, I know a lot of people really like, all the extra stuff they added later, and I don't hate it. I love the fact that he can fly, and I like the heat vision and all that stuff. But even if he'd never had that, like, let's pretend that all never came into the mythology. What they created was so good that I would, even if he was still that same guy today, in the comics, I'd still be happy about it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the character to me. Now again, if you want to bring it into a subcategory of actors, and I go, I do Christopher Reeve and George Reeves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love them as well. They are Superman in that sense as well. But
What did
yes.
you but what did you think of Kirk Allen?
Oh, you know what? He's the only one I got to meet, by the way. I loved him on those. I got to meet him once and spend time with him at a con. Spent a whole day because he had a table at a con in Baton Rouge one year, 1986, 88, when I had my shop. And he was a nice fellow. I bought the Superman cereals from him, and he was a very nice gentleman. And yes, he's really good in those. But see, by the time I'd seen that, I'd already grown up with George and Christopher.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. I was just curious.
Hey, Jeff Morris. But yeah, no, Kirk Allen, very nice man. It was cool to meet him. And yes, of course, he has a cutout cameo that's in the Superman movie, as you well know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was great. And again, those guys, other than them, though, and look, you know how I hate the Hack Snyder stuff, but I still think Henry Cavill would have been fine in a good movie. It's just he never got a chance to be in one.
Right.
Jeff Morris, hey there, Jeff. Good to see you there. So yeah, when I think Superman, I think, and when it comes to comics, I think Kurt Swan first. I mean, not only did he have the longest tenure on the character by far, and it's not even close. You realize he's the only comic book artist in comic book history that technically has more pages than Jack Kirby. And that's unreal.
Yeah.
Because Kirby is actually so far, in the page count run that it's not even, no one's ever going to catch him. But Swan is the closest one. And some have said he has more, and that's just debatable. But anyway, so, God, I love him. I love Kurt Swan. And it was great.
Kurt Swan, he was devoted to that character. Like, in a way that I almost feel like Kurt Swan was as devoted to Superman as Tom Baker was to playing Doctor Who. That's always the sense I've gotten. Like,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. It just seemed like he, some people are cynical and they're like, well, he was just, trying to keep getting a paycheck and everything like that. It's like, yeah, but he was a good enough artist that he was used in other books and in other areas, but he doggedly stayed on Superman. Like, I do think he genuinely liked that character, because otherwise, we've heard about artists talk about.
Oh, yes, he did.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've seen other artists talk about they get burnt out when they're on a comic book too long, or they're tired of drawing all those little lines on Spider-Man's costume and stuff like that. But Kurt Swan, he never seemed to tire of drawing Superman, and he did it so well, and he evolved his style over the years to keep up with, the new trends in printing and detail and, preferences and all that stuff. I feel like he really is the Tom Baker of the Superman mythos. He didn't create it, but he intrinsically loved it.
Absolutely. And of course, like a lot of pencilers, it depended on your inker. His work never looked better than when inked by the great Murphy Anderson. Of course, there were some other inkers that were okay, like Al Williamson much later, but unfortunately was post-Crisis Superman, because Swan even did post-Crisis Superman.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kurt. I mean, again, Joe Shuster, of course, is the defining version of the Golden Age. But Wayne Boring, I read so many reprints of Wayne Boring Superman as well. It's just phenomenal. But when you get into Swan, and you got to go to guys like Adams, wow, just look at this stuff and go, it's just, even Gil Kane, a different kind of an artist for Superman, but I love this run on it.
Oh, Gil Kane was the one that, like, he stood out in a way that it was almost like Gil Kane. I don't know if this is going to make sense, but Gil Kane was the most 80s artist to ever draw Superman. Like, there was a kind of, 80s. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of, I don't know how to describe it. There was this kind of 80s energy to the way he drew that. You look at his art and you go, that's 80s art right there. That's 80s comic book art. And I don't mean that with any derision or anything. I just, when I see his stuff, I know I'm looking at 80s Superman,
Oh yeah. And it was right there toward the end until everything ended. But and then Garcia Lopez is not just a Superman standard. He's like a DC Comics standard. I mean, he drew the style book.
Yeah, he drew the style book that, if they were smart, they'd still be using that to this day, but they threw that away too.
Yep, absolutely. Great stuff, though. So, when it comes to these characters, I think of the comic book art first. Ross Andrew was my very first Superman artist, says D. Bud Martin. Well, he mostly did covers. Of course, he did the Superman Spider-Man crossover, though, the first one, with various inkers, including Neil Adams and other inkers, so Dick Giordano. But so basically, Superman in the post-crisis age was, that was 40, I guess that's like 48 years, I guess.
Right.
48 years of the history of the character. It's almost been, can you believe how long it's been since Crisis now?
Oh, I know. They're probably going to do one of those memes soon where they're like, the Superman crisis is now closer to the end of World War II than it is to right now, or something like that. We're all going to feel like super old.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about Crisis for a minute. Because Crisis on Infinite Earths, to me, is something that is kind of a lightning rod when it comes to comic book fans who are old enough to remember back when it was coming out. Now, obviously, some people, even if they weren't old enough, they know about it now.
Yep.
It's that huge. I just personally hate it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people love it. I get it. Usually people talk very fondly. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. I do love one thing about it. I love this, and it's thanks to the great Ace Cast Iron, who is in the chat here. I love this gigantic 5-foot-long framed poster that I have had on my wall for over 20 years now because of him. He gave it to me. It was by George Perez and Alex Ross. It's that big, long, have you ever seen that big, long Crisis poster?
Yeah.
With the entire, It's gorgeous, and I do love it for that.
Yeah.
And I love it for the George Perez art, of course. That goes without saying.
I always felt like Crisis, I never understood the love around it. I always felt like Crisis of Infinite Earths was the DC equivalent of the animated G.I. Joe movie, where or the animated Transformers movie, where what they were trying to do was wipe the board clean so they could start over and get a bunch of number ones out there so that they could just start selling, high volume comics to a bunch of new readers and stuff like that, rather than try and work with the legacy they had. And
Larry, what's up, buddy? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. So what you end up with is a story that is really just there for corporate marketing purposes. Like it's there to start selling new products. It's not actually there to credibly continue a story. I know that some people are going to be like, no, Crisis is great and all this kind of stuff, but I do think Crisis set a precedent that started to bleed into other comics, and it's continued. That the legacy of Crisis has continued into the present day with the New 52 and the this and the that, and they can't get away from these massive crossovers now.
Yeah, but that's all true. But see, actually, they started dumping on Crisis 2 years after they already came out. But my problem with Crisis is this. Look, of course, it was done for corporate. It's done for corporate reasons, and that's my biggest problem. This comic book was this whole Crisis is not just a comic. There's another thing. If it's just a comic, it's one thing. This was an editorial decision coming down from Jeanette Kahn, the publisher at the time. I know they've abused multiverses now, but at the time, she had decided that people weren't buying the DC books enough because they had all these different Earths. Well, as a kid, and I'm never, look, I'm a comic geek. I'm no rocket scientist, but I understood fine Earth 1, Earth 2, except that they had the wrong name, so they should be named the other way around. But I understood multi-universes. Like these were multiple Earths that these characters. Every year, the JLA and the JSA would team up and they would cross over into each other's universes. I was fine with that.
Right.
I had no problem with it, but Jeanette Kahn decided she thought that there was the continuity was too much of a problem for readers because and she was not a comics person. When she came in the mid 80s, mid 70s to take over at DC, she did a lot of marketing things. She came over from oh God, I want to forget, was it Pizzazz magazine or Hot Stuff? One of those kids mags or so. She came, I forgot exactly. She came in from magazines, right?
Uh-huh.
To work for National or for DC. And she did a lot of things that really made her popular. That, you know, she came up with a lot of ideas that did market very well for a while for DC, but she was not a comics person.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she started all those 100-page giants, the Dollar comic series. She did a lot of things that went over pretty well, but eventually she decided that this continuity is just so muddled up and confused. No, you muddled it up and confused it with Crisis, because you were saying, hey, let's merge all these Earths together and change everything. That's the beginning of the end, because she came up with this ridiculous, wacky idea that somehow, if you hodgepodge all these Earths into one and say, basically, well, this happened, but it didn't. This character existed, but it didn't. Now this character's never existed at all. This one has a different idea. You know, all that stuff. That was confusing. Not it made more sense to say this character's from this Earth, this character's from that Earth. I had no problem following it before, but you turned it into a bunch of crap, and you did it just so you could do a few things. Like you were talking about, crossover a bunch of different comic books into the whole event, so you could start a bunch, have a bunch of crossover books. And back then they didn't go back to number one much like they do now.
Right.
They didn't. They continued their series going on. And so Jeanette Kahn, to me, that was gobbledygook. It made no sense. And let's kill characters so we can start out some other ones down different paths. So we could do it as an excuse to kill characters. And then a year later, they put in the Superman revamp.
Uh-huh.
So it didn't make any sense. That revamp should have been before Crisis, not after. Then They did it to Wonder Woman. Then they did it to Batman. Really, with Batman Year One, there were softer reboots, but there were reboots.
Yep.
So none of that made any damn sense. They were contradicting themselves 2 years in, and then after that, because of Secret Wars, which came before it, and because of Crisis, then it became every year we got to have the summer event. We got to have the summer event. Everything had to be an event, and event comics are what really turned me off.
Yeah, I never liked event comics. I liked to collect the titles I liked, and the moment I saw an event title and I was picking up an issue of my comic and it said, this isn't really, a Batman comic. This is actually part 4 of 27 of, the Turnip Planet crossover. And it's like, great. I get to buy a comic that I'm not going to understand what's going on. I hated that crap.
Hated it, and it was so Ace puts there, I'm the same way. I'll never forgive them for what they did to my beloved Superboy and Legion of Superheroes, saying it didn't happen. They brought in John Byrne to revamp Superman after they'd already revamped the whole damn universe. Why were I don't know. At least Superman, the Golden and Silver Bronze Age Superman did get a nice send-off by Alan Moore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that book. Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow?
Yes, I have the two original comics that went across Superman and Action Comics, and I have both of those. So
great. Love it. So yeah, Crisis. After that, everything just got kind of ugly.
Yeah. And everything became, well, like we just said, Crisis was trying to clear things up, but then when the origin stories of Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman showed up, it started to actually get more confusing in the wake of Crisis. And while they were trying to reestablish this new mythology, what I find really, really, and it's something that I'm sure it gets talked about in comic book circles, but it doesn't get talked about a lot, I think, especially in just general pop culture and geek circles, is that, and this is something that's preoccupied me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Superman had nearly 50 years unbroken in the comics run before Crisis. Like he was 2 years shy of a 50-year run.
Yeah.
Always in the book and blah, 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 and always doing his thing. And so then they say, we're going to simplify this and we're going to reset everything. Okay, well, you did that. Your mileage may vary on how effective that was.
Right.
And then from 86 to 1992 or 3 or whatever it was, which was only like 7 years, whatever it was. That's all Superman had before they killed him. And it's like, wait a second. So I've often argued that they're meddling to fix, in heavy air quotes, the DC continuity. Broke it. Because if you can keep Superman going for 48 years before you even have to reset the universe around him, and then 7 years after that you've got to kill him off just to try and keep your sales up, somewhere along the way you've messed up. I've always wondered, how that shook out that way. To me, that's an indicator that they didn't fix anything. They broke it.
Live by the gimmick, you die by the gimmick.
Yeah.
Crap rewarded is crap repeated. In other words, people buy it. People always bought in. They always got sucked in. Hey there, Canadian Spidey. And good night, J-Man, buddy. Good to see you. Once they realized that they were going to be able to suck in these people. They're going to buy it. In other words, they knew that people, no matter what they did, whatever gimmick they put out there was going to sell. Then they were no longer afraid of losing sales. They just knew that once things start to dry up a little bit, we'll just make a new gimmick. Yeah. And like as everyone said, once the summer events started to kind of lose their luster for fans. And that happened, and because Marvel and DC were both doing it. Marvel see, DC do, DC see, DC do. That's the way it's always been, and all throughout comics history. They started running out of. Our events aren't cutting it, so how about we kill Superman? That'll get him because we haven't killed anybody on that big yet.
Right.
Made a gimmick, and now of course, back when that came out, was it 94 or whatever?
90. That was like 93 or
94, whatever it was, somewhere up in there. Okay. Well, Harlan Ellison came out on the show. Remember the show Sci-Fi Buzz on the Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah.
Where he had it's called Harlan Ellison is Watching, and he did a commentary on it. And he said he was talking about the death of Superman. He said, "You guys don't fall for this. Superman's killed DC Comics killed Superman 3 times a year." And what he means, of course, was the hyperbolic covers that you would always see about, cover where, oh my God, Superman's dead. And in the story, he gets killed, but he comes back to life, that kind of crap. They used to do it. He was being hyperbolic, but he was saying they always used to do like scare gimmicks where on the covers, just to get readers like, oh my God, Superman's dead. And, whatever.
Right.
But this character's dead. And then all this was just a like a blown up, out of proportion version of the same old hype. Because you knew they weren't going to kill Superman. Right. They might kill him, but they're going to bring him back to life. Just like, in other words, if you bought that comic book in 1968 or 75 on the cover where it says, "Oh no, Superman's dead," you knew by the time you got to the last page, it's going to be fine. This was just, how about instead of doing it in one issue, we really string him on. We'll kill him, and he's going to be dead. And and they know good and well they can't kill him for legal reasons. They can't kill him. They're not going to do that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's why when I refocused my efforts instead on collecting pre-crisis Superman, I found a purity to the DC universe again that I had been missing since since the curtain closed on, as bad as the movie was, Superman 4. There was, on one level, I feel like DC, like you said with the whole thing about Secret Wars, they were trying to chase Marvel and edge up their books a little bit, or whatever you want to call it. So when you go back and you look at some of the late Bronze Age stuff, you're seeing a much more classic comic book format where the stories aren't necessarily so soap operatic. They're not Marvel, and they are self-contained adventures of the month. And Superman is fighting, or not fighting, but sometimes he's fighting, but he's dealing with the next threat to Metropolis or the next threat to the universe or whatever it is. And he generally defeats that villain by the end of the issue. It's the comic book equivalent of freeze frame yellow credits with drop shadow that we used to love in our television shows. And frankly, I don't care if I sound like an old man. I really like that purity of the format a lot more. I guess if people were looking at it in hindsight at the time, they would probably have said something like, oh, well, pre-crisis DC, the crisis needed to happen because DC was becoming childish or dated, or they were losing their audience, or they weren't keeping up with the times, or whatever you want to call it. But more and more, I hear people who are disenfranchised by current comic books, which all come from the post-crisis, Genesis. And they're more and more saying, yeah, I'm going back and I'm reading the old stuff.
Yeah.
I'm finding stuff, and they've never read it before. I haven't read all of it, but yeah. So I don't know. I think it was unfair and short-sighted of DC to assume at the time that they needed to, completely change their whole personality and their whole, artistic or creative culture around their heroes and their books. My experience with pre-crisis Superman has been one of that not all the when you have a character that goes that long, you're not going to have perfect stories every issue. There are going to be some duds, but the lump sum of his content from 1938 to 1985 or whatever it was really, really just fun, classic comic book format stories. And I wouldn't trade. I like seeing Clark Kent in the blue suit with the black and red striped tie. Like I like that consistency, but I'm sure there's going to be people who are like, that guy's just a grumpy old man.
Of course, aren't we? Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd say about Crisis is that my biggest complaint about it, well, as I said, because it was being done, it's the reasons behind it. I've been saying this since 1985 when it came out. If this were a result of, let's say, writers and artists, writers and editors and artists getting together and say, hey, wouldn't this be a cool idea? Wouldn't this be a great idea if we did X, Y, and Z, what sort of story is concerned, right? That's not why. This was not a result of someone coming up with an idea. This was not art. Yes, obviously the art in itself is the story and the drawing and the but it wasn't art in the sense that this was all conceptualized by a corporate publisher who was not an artist, meaning Jeanette Kahn. It was all done. The motivation behind it was pure. And again, I know it's a business, and I'm not saying you should separate the business, but in other words, it wasn't like it was a business decision. Is fine when you say, hey, we want to sell these comics. You guys go write and draw them for me. We could sell them. No, the cart was before the horse in this case. And she goes, all right, I want this done. You guys know, go do this for me with your writing and your art. In other words, but that means the corporation, the corporate head or the head that made the decisions corporate wise for DC at that time, or, the publishing wise, dictated the story and the art.
Mm-hmm.
That means this is not an organic story at first. This is a product. It's a hamburger. It's coming off of an assembly line in a sense. It's not art in the sense that they said, hey, wouldn't this be a cool story? Yeah, let's do this. The motivation behind it, I guess what I'm saying is it supersedes art. And that's what really bothers me about it. Other than the fact that it was just, again, it's just, I think you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, it's creativity by committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea. And it was coming from on high. It wasn't like they're going to her and say, hey, we want to do this story. And as she as a publisher approves it, this is the publisher saying, hey, I want you guys, here it is. I'm telling you what to do. Go do this. Rather than letting them be creative. It's widgets. That's a good one, Larry. It's widgets.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. And then the gimmick shite, for example, the kill Superman, and people went nuts for it. And so when you reward something, it's, anything rewarded is going to be repeated. So the death of Superman was a big successful propaganda blitz that was phony because you knew the DC Comics basically broke death, as someone said. You knew that he was coming back. You knew he wasn't going to stay dead. So right after that, they said, hey, let's do it again. Let's break Batman's back. We won't kill him because they would just killed one. It'd be silly to kill Batman.
Right.
So we'll break his back. Another one, Nightfall, a total gimmick.
Yep.
Which another one I can't stand because it was a damn gimmick.
Yep. I hated Azrael as Batman. I knew the whole thing.
I hate Azrael.
Yeah. And similarly, then they started Marvel. DC got tempted by Marvel, then Marvel got tempted by DC. They ripped out all of Wolverine's adamantium in a special there in the mid-90s. And you knew that was eventually going to get, you knew Wolverine was eventually going to get his metal skeleton back. Like, but they had to do all that. And, they did that with, there were a number of other big superheroes that were chasing that. Maximum Carnage, was a Spider-Man thing. And then they did the whole Maximum Clonage thing, which was, which killed the Spider-Man comic for all time. And I think that's why the pre-crisis DC heroes work so much better for me, is because as simplistic as some people want to claim some of those books are, and as, these are quaint, compared to what Marvel was doing at the time, what they did do very successfully was preserve the iconic images of the DC characters, where those books, the characters of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, Green Lantern, they were all still icons of, a pantheon of gods. And it felt that way when you read the books, because the books were about those characters. Like, if you picked up a Wonder Woman book, it wasn't steeped in all of this. I seriously tried to read post-crisis Wonder Woman when I was in grad school.
The Perez one?
What's that?
The George Perez run?
The George Perez run, and when Adam Hughes was doing all those covers, I was also trying to read those as well. So I was trying to read both in tandem. Like, I was trying to read post-crisis Perez, and I was also trying to read the hot cover, the stories within those Adam Hughes covers. And all of it was so bogged down in all of this. I don't know what kind of story details and lore they were trying to inject into all these stories, but I almost felt like every time I would turn a page that I was just reading. And I like comics that have substance, but comics are also about visuals, and they're about action, and they're about dynamic, images on a page. And these books were more like reading dissertations. They were so granular and so all of that is what it solidifies my opinion that pre-crisis Superman and pre-crisis DC understood itself better. It knew what it was supposed to do every month. And you get that feeling when you read the original Golden Age Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman has its own interesting story, but definitely Superman and Batman Golden Age, the foundation stones were laid very solidly for those characters at that time. And the Silver Age and Bronze Age, didn't betray that for those characters. Those characters got through all that pretty much intact. So it's there's this one issue in the Bronze Age of Superman. I can't remember what number it is, but Superman's fighting this villain. I can't remember what his name was. It wasn't one of the marquee villains. It wasn't Brainiac or Lex Luthor. And the way he figures out how to stop this villain is he does something, and of course he explains to the villain how he stopped him at the end, but he runs around the world so fast that the guy doesn't even realize he did it and got around behind him. Like, like, and I love that.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
I love it.
Because Superman thinks the writers back then in the pre-crisis,
like Carrie Bates idea.
Yeah, they knew how to write Superman. They did not see his omniscience as a limitation. They knew how to write. You know what I mean? Like they knew how to write him in a way where you didn't have to take away one of his powers or overload one of his powers or have him be in marital difficulties for the story to feel compelling. It was all about like Superman thought his way out of more challenges than punched his way out of out of challenges. There was plenty of flying and punching and fighting.
Right. But he was always a thinker.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's brilliant. I mean, that's why he would find a way to keep a certain evil Kryptonian from burning someone down with his heat vision rather than having to snap his neck. But that's Superman, the real Superman anyway. But we won't go there, will we?
Exactly. There was a lot of that going on. Now, obviously, the Golden Age Superman of the original.
Yeah, he was a little bit of a brute.
He was a brute, but what I was thinking about in that moment was you were also dealing with a far more grounded analog setting for his stories. He was living in a Depression era America. The stories were being written for that kind of audience, and so his stories at the beginning were far more grounded. Where he was going after racketeers, and he was,
it was different times.
It was a different time, but I still love reading those stories. I take nothing away from them. It reminds me I need to prioritize getting a few more archive editions for my collection. I've got a good run going, Mike, but you can always add more.
I think they're still doing those. I don't know how many you have or how many you got going, but you can get it if you don't have them all yet. You can probably start getting some of them cheap now because I don't think they're making archives anymore.
Yeah, they've gone to the omnibus thing, the thigh breakers. But yeah, like the Superman of the Golden Age was he was a brute compared to the Bronze Age, but he also did a fair amount of musing and thinking and everything else. Like he thought ahead on how to get one up on the illegal slot machines that were being, whoever the mafia was that was putting them in there. He knew how to get around those gangsters and stay one step ahead of them. In the Silver Age, they had so many difficulties with the Seduction of the Innocent book with Wortham and everything that they were the comic book industry had to take everything related to superheroes, as we both know, Mike. They had to take it out into the cosmos, literally, to stay away from criticism. I would be very interested to hear you talk about right now, like Superman he's always been Superman, and a pre-crisis Superman is always very consistent. The stories around him, and this is what I've always maintained, you don't change Superman, you give him a new challenge.
Right.
And
yes,
I would like to hear you, because you're more familiar with the Silver Age than me, talk about what the challenges for Superman in the Silver Age were, both in the lore and in the development of the comics themselves.
Okay. By the way, hello, Donnie Pearson. Good to see you, buddy. In the Silver Age, the big challenge was it was coming off of the McCarthy witch hunt. So he didn't really deal with comics, but around that era is when the congressional, I guess, hearings about comic books that caused the EC and a lot of other comics companies to go out of business, and brought upon the Comics Code Authority, that stuff around the time of the Seduction of the Innocent by Frederick Wortham. Interesting note. So few people even know this. You know about Seduction of the Innocent. You know about Frederick Wortham and all that stuff that went on with that.
Yep.
Did you know that he changed his mind later?
Oh, really?
In the late 60s and into the early 70s, he started getting a lot of letters from comic book readers who were reading DC and Marvel primarily, of course, like that, and talking about their fanzines. And they got a lot of fanzines were starting to come out big at the time. And he started, he was a clinical psychologist or whatever, I guess, right? And he started looking into that and started corresponding with all these young men and then young people, usually young guys, who read and loved comic books. And he eventually wrote a big, I don't know what you want to call it, a treatise or whatever it was, not a paper, maybe it was a book, about the fanzines and about how these superheroes and these characters, these kids took them as positive role models, took them as positive influences on how to be like these superheroes and stuff. And he actually changed his mind. He saw that there was good and positive influence that came out of superhero comic books in particular in comics. So he started to acknowledge that, and he wrote about it, but no one remembers that. They just remember his villainy for his stupid witch hunts.
Right.
Which just goes to show you, people like to always, whereas we think, we hope, we wish as a society we'd be more about redemption and forgiveness. It's not always the case, but I give him credit for that. I mean, for learning. But nobody knows about that because it's a tiny little footnote in the history that you have to go back in time and you have to have been a reader of the Comics Journal in the 80s to know that. Because you could find, I'd have to find out, it's a big fanzine thing he wrote.
Well, that
thing about fanzines.
That tracks, a person gets arrested on page 1, they get acquitted on page 36, down in the column somewhere, right by the Oscar Mayer hot dog ad.
Right. But the big challenges for Superman, all the characters, all the superheroes in the Silver Age they were faced with a big problem. They had to clean them up quite a bit. They had to sanitize them quite a bit. And therefore, they were marketed to much younger readers, and they were not to be taken seriously. So when comic book superheroes, the genre was re-energized somewhat by the Flash and the second Barry Allen Flash and the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, due to editor Julius Schwartz and creators like John Broome and Gil Kane and Carmen Infantino and Gardner Fox and people like that. Superman and Batman were still going strong, but Superman, more in the Mort Weisinger era, was just again, all you had to do was do squeaky clean adventures with him that weren't very serious, not taken seriously, that you could market to small children, and just have him be the Boy Scout. And at each issue, do something shocking on the cover that will lure fans in. And that's why you have superdickery.com.
Yeah. I love that site.
So the challenge was simply follow keep your nose clean, follow the Comics Code Authority, do comics about Superman, whether he's Superboy teaming up with the Legion or whether he's Superman having all these multiple title adventures, including World's Finest with Batman. But let's just keep it clean, keep it kid friendly. And there really were no challenges because he was Superman. He had the biggest sales there were, even at that point. So, and yes, Matthew Pounder says Weisinger went down the slapstick comedy route. It was crazy stuff. So
there's a charm to some of that, though. I think. It's set up. If not for the Silver Age, we really wouldn't have Supergirl, and we wouldn't have gotten that whole mythology about or not mythology, but we wouldn't have gotten that whole wonderful Superboy thing that we all now know and love. That whole thing, that all those things took root in the Silver Age. I feel, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's when that all occurred.
Well, he actually started. Superboy first appeared in 1949, but yeah, I mean, he had his own comic for a good while, but I think his popularity probably really got big in the late 50s and early 60s.
Yeah, when I hear 1949, I know that technically that's the atomic age of comics, but all I think
Still
of is
a little gold.
yeah, it's like that gold silver cusp kind of thing for me. It's like, to me, I know that officially it's still golden age, but I think of the end of World War II all the time as the end of an era, and then and I know that I don't get to make the rules, but that's just the way my mind works. I'm like, oh, so it's after World War II, so that means it's Silver Age, and then everybody
Right.
they're like, no, the Silver Age didn't actually start till like the 50s. I'm like, oh, okay, right.
Yeah, basically, Drew G. Good to see you there, and hello there, Alvaro Belamonte. And everyone seems to have a different take on where ages start and stop. I have my own, and mine basically goes like this: Golden Age. People like to start it at 1938 with Superman, but there were comics many years before that. Famous funnies and on up through in Detective Comics and action, Detective Comics and such. So, but if you want to start at Superman, fine. If you want to do 38, fine. I mean, you can do a couple of years earlier than that, but it does have to stop around 1954, 3 or 4, whatever year it was. And again, I'm probably drawing a blank on the exact year when Barry Allen Flash and Hal Jordan Green Lantern start. Up in there is where I think the Silver Age starts. That's my opinion. I mean, people like to vary it. And in the one, and again, I don't mind variances. One thing I won't budge on though is that the Bronze Age starts in 1970 when Jack Kirby leaves Marvel for DC. Yeah, no question about that in my mind. So you you got about a little over 15 years for the each age, give or take. So and then I would say that the Bronze Age ends with Crisis.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And after that, Copper, or whatever you want to call it.
Do they have a name for that now?
Yeah, it's I think people have been known to call it Copper till about 2000 or something like that, or to 1999 or 2000. And then after that, some have used the term Iron Age from there. And that I'll go with that. But after 2002, starting with 2011 with the Screw 52, I call it the Garbage. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's funny. That's good.
But pre-crisis Superman means so much to me because even a bad story or a good story, he's still Superman.
Yeah.
And that sounds simplistic.
No,
and it's meant to be.
No, because like we established, everything after post-crisis, you don't have that consistency. Sometimes you can have a bad story and a bad Superman in post-crisis comics. And when I say bad, I don't mean morally. I mean poorly written. Right.
And let's just be honest, he had a lot of lousy comics. I mean, Superman, look, when you have a character that has that many comics, you can have a lot of crummy ones.
Yep.
The writing was puerile often. Yeah, it was gimmicky often. Sometimes the only thing you had going for you was some really cool Kurt Swan art and a cool Neil Adams cover or what have you. But it's still, when you're a kid, you don't think so much about that as you do now. In other words, you might look back at one now and go, wow, this is good. But when I was a kid, this made so much more sense. Of course it did. You were a kid. That's what I can't seem to make some people in modern day, not all, understand that of course your sensibilities are different now. This is why these people who want these characters to be edgy and over the top and dark and all that crap, it gets on my nerves because I'm like, look, do you understand these characters were created for children? Mm-hmm. And we lived, Michael, I cannot understand how we can live in a day and age in the past 10 years, 12 years, where you can make a movie that is ostensibly a Superman movie. You can't even use his name in the title, meaning Man of Steel. Sorry, I'm going there. Mm-hmm. And it's not kid friendly. That if you make a movie that's supposed to have Superman in it, and you can't take a 5-year-old to it, something's wrong with it. That's what
I've always said. I've never understood people who said, well, comics don't have to be for kids. It's like, okay, yeah, some comics from the off were never.
They don't all have to be, but sure.
Yeah, but Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they're for kids. They always were. They always were. Regardless of what you want to say about William Moulton Marston and his bondage
Right.
fixation and all that stuff. That went
Yeah.
over kids' heads back then. Like
Right.
kids were just wanting to read these adventures. Kids were far more innocent back then. Like he was weird, but they were that wasn't all completely coming across. And it's crazy when I hear people say, no, comic books of superheroes, the mainstream books of those heroes need to be, aged up. And I'm like, I think you've lost the plot, or maybe you just don't want to have to face up to the fact that, which is your insecurity, not mine, that you don't want to be seen as being into childish things. I don't have that hang up, but
I'm totally into childish things and admit it. Yes, Superman is about it is about childish wonder in a sense. The wonder is there, and these are they are for kids. And the thing is, look, I don't mind Elseworld stories. I mean, I don't particularly care for them personally, but when you do some of these things with Superman, it's better to do them with Superman knockoffs, but with Superman or even Batman or whatever, and they're quote unquote stories that are hey, Monkey Jeebus, that are aimed at adults, right? Quote unquote adults, usually recalcitrant adults. Anyway, let's get. I'll just avoid that for a minute. Who that are definitely violent and have sexual content and these things like that. I guess they make a little money off of that stuff, though not anymore, really. But there was a time when they did. But if you're doing it in the comic book medium, and you're doing it that is something aimed at older readers, okay, I mean that's fine. But when you get out into the public on the big movie screen, I think you should play nice. I think, in other words, I don't care what it makes me sound like. When you're going to put Superman, even Batman. Now, I know, look, the Nolan Batman movies did very well.
Mm-hmm.
And they were aimed at and you know what? Even though they were aimed at older viewers, and you couldn't take very young children to them, even they weren't like over the top, super. They were violent, but they were like, I don't know. They weren't. Even Batman in those movies doesn't kill, and even Batman has some principles in those movies,
right?
But and it gave us Batman the Brave and the Bold, at least. So that's the best thing about it. But again, I'll tell you what our good buddy Mark C., who we named this show after, Monday Night Mark C. Comics, like our dear departed friend. I remember bumping in. I'd known him already, but I bumped into him right around the time Man of Steel soiled screens. Hey, Zachariah, back in 2013, right when it was in the theater. Bumped him at the comic shop. He had a very young kid. And he, of course, he was a Superman fanatic. He loved Superman. And we talked about the movie and how bad it was or whatever. But he said, you know what really just made him sick, other than the movie being terrible, is that I couldn't even bring my kid to see it. I bought him some of the toys, and even the toys weren't that good, obviously, because of course they're not. They were, what they were based on.
Right.
But he said, I could buy him a toy, and it would just look like a Superman toy, even though it's got the wrong garbage costume. He said, but I can't bring him to the movie because I went and saw it before, so I'd see if it was all right to bring him. He wanted to see it. He was very young, and I couldn't because his son was like about, I don't know, like maybe like 5 or 6 at the time, somewhere up in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring my own child to see it. And I'm like, how sick is that? When a movie ostensibly featuring Superman, you can't bring a young child to see it.
Right.
I'm sorry. In 1978, you could have brought a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old to Superman the movie.
Yeah.
And they would have loved it. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't understand everything going on, but they would have loved it. Yep. And they did. It happened.
The idea that Hollywood studios have now with these, that we need to make these superhero films like truly for adults, like make it adult only, truly adult only.
Yes.
What a short-sighted way to be. I mean, that just shows that you've got creatively bankrupt people who are, they don't understand this medium. They're not comfortable with or appreciate these kind of myths, and they don't know, they don't have the headspace to actually steward these. They don't know how to do it.
No.
I've seen the same thing happen over the years to a much more ancient superhero, but nonetheless a hero he evolved rapidly into a Superman style, which was Robin Hood. They don't know how to make him anymore either.
No.
All the new incarnations of Robin Hood within the last decade have been really, I mean,
grim
just
and gritty.
yeah, like on a level where you just go, wow. I'm waiting for the next Superman movie for the first scene with Superman, him just snorting cocaine off of a prostitute or something.
Well, it is James Gunn, so it could happen.
Yeah,
You know, I don't
it's
know. I'd like to think he would have sense enough to at least. I mean, even if it's not good, at least to make an effort to,
Yeah, and I'm sure
But
James
I
Gunn
wouldn't trust him though.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm sure James Gunn on some level is going to be far more brightly colored and lit as far as the movie cinematography goes than Zack Snyder. The question is, what will the content be? And
yeah, and I find it very questionable considering the people he has in his writer's room. Your old toys, young man, that is very good. He's a very young fella, and he's saying exactly right. It's like making a toy and saying, "Oh, kids can't play with this toy." When yeah, I mean they're doing that kind of with some toys, naming them adults and stuff. But that's a good point.
But you're
right. I mean, toys are for kids.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Pre-crisis DC was accessible to everyone. Anyone could enjoy it. And it was, while it was aimed at children, it was not limited to children. Whereas now it's the other way around. It's aimed at adults and it is limited away from children.
Absolutely. Scott Knudsen, thank you so much for that. You're too kind, my friend. I really appreciate that. For that super chat says, it takes a special kind of stupid to look at something that's been consistently popular for 3 generations and say, you know what we need to do to sell this? Change everything. Boy, howdy.
Yeah.
That's something. Look, that's something. And this does line up with Crisis, Michael. One of the things I personally loathed about Crisis and other things that I think that, well, some that preceded it, some that came after it, is revisionism in comics.
Yes.
I can't stand mindless revisionism like there's any other kind. For example, John Byrne comes along. Look, usually if you think there's some crappy baggage in the stories done before, as a writer, let's say you're the new writer on Superman in 1982 or whatever, right? All you have to do is ignore stories you don't think matter, because it's so much, you can just forget about it. And you could go your own way to a point. You could talk to the editor. You could say, I just want to do stories, but I don't really want to acknowledge that. And you could usually get some pretty good slack over it. And fans won't even give you too much trouble. But John Byrne came along and said, I don't like all this, and that's the Superman. And he even said the words, nothing ever happened to Superman unless I say so. Then he screwed over Superboy and the Legion. And later even, by the way, he's on record as regretting it. And like he says, we need to change everything. Revisionism, to me, shows no imagination and no creativity. To simply wipe out somebody else's work. I'm a big believer in respect for what went before. I've fought that all my life. How people would come in and say, yeah, I didn't like that guy. I don't, they will talk about a character created by someone else, and they decided they're better than that someone who created the character, and they're going to do whatever they want with the character, including dump all over what the creators of the character did. And I don't like it.
Yeah, it defies common sense. I was somebody who sat in the theater during Superman Returns, and I was heartbroken because I felt like I was looking at an actor that would have made a great Superman.
Brandon, yeah.
Hey,
Tom with Midnight's Edge here, by the way, saying hello. Hey, buddy.
Tom, good to see you, sir. Great to see
you there, brother. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom is the man. Good to see you, bud.
Yeah, Tom is good people.
Yes, sir.
But I really felt like I was watching a wasted opportunity. I felt like the script was, lost garbage, and people were joking it's not Superman, it's Super Stalker and all that kind of stuff. And it was really too bad, because I think I don't give Bryan Singer any credit for this because he's the one that approved this story and didn't know what he was doing. But I think Brandon Routh would have been a really, really great classic rendition of Superman. Like I think he really, I think he channeled and respected what Christopher Reeve and George Reeves had built on, and I think he would have made a stellar Superman with the right screenwriter and a director with the right vision. And when I say that, I mean a great pre-crisis style Superman. But unfortunately,
you got lumbered with a horrible script and a bad director, in my opinion.
Yeah, but horrible script, bad director, uninspired production design. It was a conflated mess. It was a movie that didn't know what movie it wanted to be. And that right there is dead on arrival for a superhero film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I still think it's better than the filth of Man of Steel, but yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, dude, we're not even debating that. That's
no.
For damn sure. Yeah.
It's just not good. And the thing is, hey Scott, it's good to see you there, my friend. It's but the thing about that is it's just such a missed opportunity. I remember when I was complaining about the costume in that movie, and I'm going, wow, it's better than the one that got later. But at least it had trunks. It wasn't very good, by the way. It could have been better.
No. They muted the colors. They deleted the S.
Muted colors.
The S wasn't on the cape. Like it was, they took his trunks and turned them into Speedos, which was like really
terrible.
But I thought that Brandon Routh had so much weight. He had so much potential, and he was doing his job to the letter, and they blew it. They blew it with him. And unfortunately, the fan rabble, they love to blame the actor when things go wrong. And at the time, I heard all these people like, he was no Christopher Reeve. And it's like, no, I don't want to hear that crap, because guess what? Christopher Reeve is Christopher Reeve, like George Reeves is George Reeves. All right. Like, let's not pit them against one another. Brandon Routh didn't have a chance because the production team at Hollywood screwed it up. But I think the reason that I find Superman Returns to be it's not even a love-hate movie with me. It's a movie that I actively don't like. But the reason that I tend to fixate on it a lot more when discussing and being critical of Superman entertainment outside of the comic itself is that I felt like, after I walked out of that, if they had done that movie correctly with a better story, with Brandon, and a better director with a better vision, because they were willing to use the John Williams music and set it in the same universe as the Christopher Reeve films, I saw it as an opportunity, a wasted opportunity, to repopularize classic, iconic pre-crisis Superman. And if they could have done that, what happens. The rest of the merchandising and marketing machine for a popular movie always follows suit. And so that could have, in a way, kicked everything back toward a more classic DC universe for the larger corporate umbrella. But they blew it, as De Niro said in Clobberin.
They blew it.
Yeah.
Such a missed opportunity. Yeah, that was absolutely missed opportunity. It's a shame. And too bad he did get a chance to do more. So, look, Christopher Reeve, his sales even more tragic in a sense, because he got 4 shots at it and only one of them's any good. I know I'm the only one that says that, but other than the first one, which is wonderful, I hate 2, 3, and 4. So,
you're not alone on that. You're not alone on that.
The only one.
when I start that series I was telling you about, called a love-hate relationship about certain movies, Superman 2 is on that list. Like, it's a movie I want to like, but I hate it because it's so broken.
I hate it.
That movie's so broken.
But most people like it, which is perfectly fine. I don't mind being in the wilderness on that one. And one day we need to talk about the Donner cut. Because, man, look at Tom. Hey, Tom, I knew you were going to mention the Donner cut. I have a lot of problems with the Donner cut, even though
the Donner cut hurts so bad because it's a work print that shows what could have been.
Yes, it
and
hurts.
it's
Agreed.
like, but because we're using screen tests and out of continuity things and lower production quality auditions and stuff to kind of fill the gaps and everything like that, and then some really, really bad inserts that they filmed where they like, it's like they got the Lois and Clark costume to do these close-up inserts. They didn't even get the right costume. You're looking at a work
Right.
of what could have been. So it's not actually to me, it's not a watchable finished product.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
But
it's in that sense, it's a tragedy. I do think that if they had done the movie from start to finish that way with Richard Donner still at the helm, then I don't think I would hate Superman 2 the way I don't like it right now. But it is by and large, I do think that Superman as a character was more respected in all media in the pre-crisis world than he has been in the post-crisis world.
well, absolutely.
Yeah.
No question about it. The character down the line was far more respected.
Yeah.
He's been kind of a joke. As a matter of fact, right around the time Crisis ended, you had and that takes us to, since we're talking pre-crisis, is the respect Superman got just as a character in the mainstream as well as in comics was heavily damaged by comics. Believe it or not, Frank Miller did it, and he did it with his, in my opinion, overrated. This could be in trouble. His overrated Dark Knight Returns, and his characterization of Superman in that book is terrible. He showed no respect for him, and then after that, it was bad enough at that time. The movies, you'd have Superman 3 out around that time, a little before that time. Then you get Superman 4. Respect for the character in terms of just out there, the way Miller had treated him, the way a couple of other writers had treated him, the way Byrne treated him, as far as I'm concerned, he was not getting the respect after the pre-crisis era. So pre-crisis Superman, that 48 years will always be his heyday.
Yeah. Do you think, and I know this is going to sound like a super naive question. No pun intended. I didn't mean to use super in that. Do you think, Mike, that there's any chance in our lifetime that DC could not permanently in the sense of forever, because everything changes, but could they have a seismic shift and go back to their roots with their comics and their media? I almost thought we were going to see that a little bit with the opening 10 minutes of Superman and Lois's first episode, and then of course that didn't happen. Is there a shot in hell?
No, I mean, you say if you use your question uses the word could, they could, but if you say will they, not a shot in hell, not with the people running it now. I mean, okay, let me backtrack. Maybe someday someone will come to some good sense and oust all those idiots running it now. But I would just say no. I wouldn't. Not their comic book division for sure, and I don't think their media division, because right now we live in a time, and I never thought we'd live here, where these characters are not comic book characters anymore. That doesn't mean they don't make comic books about them. Don't get me wrong. Their primary home is media, especially big screen and small screen media, right?
Right.
To me, they were always comic book characters, but and there was a time even people who didn't read comics understood that they were comic book characters. Now they're movie characters and TV characters, and the comics, production side of it is meaningless. It's tiny. It caters to a tiny audience. They don't care. So some good stuff may be possible to slip through the cracks every now and then. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think anyone running that cares enough anymore to do any of that. I think it's over, or at least for the time being, for a good long while. Who knows? Maybe it'll make some kind of resurgence later, but I don't think so.
I just keep thinking, with all of this nostalgia that's been going on, I find it very strange that we've got all these studios scrambling to do nostalgia. They're scrambling to digitally recreate Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker in his youth. They're bringing back Indiana Jones. Like they're doing they brought back Russell T Davies to do Doctor Who, because even his run on Doctor Who's nostalgic now. Like they're doing all this stuff in the service of nostalgia. Hell, Spider-Man No Way Home brings back every postmodern live action Spider-Man for another run.
Right.
Meanwhile, DC is the one property that desperately needs them to wake up and realize that, not for the sake of nostalgia, but for the sake of the highest quality versions of their characters, was in the past. So they could really benefit from a nostalgia play right now. And they're the one major outlier that isn't doing that. Now, in normal circumstances, I would say, gosh, that would be great to see more studios take risks and stuff. But when you're taking risks, you got to take the right risks and take them smartly. And DC has not done that. So I do find it very weird that, all these other, I mean, my God, they brought back Night Court. So all these other studios are figuring out how to lean on nostalgia for better or worse, most of it for worse. But DC, it really could do with some of that right now, and it's still got its back turned on it. Like, it's, oh my God, I just...
No, you're right, but I just don't, like I say, not in comics for sure, not anytime soon. Once in a while. Hey, Michael Carney, thank you, man. Good to see you. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Appreciate it. The £2 super chat. Hi, Clobby. Hi, back, buddy. Always great to have you here. Thank you. Good to see all of you here tonight. Tiger Stripes, hey there. Tiger Stripes, I'm in trouble now. Take me to task. She says, overrated. The Dark Knight Returns is a work of genius. I have a lot of issues, if you'll pardon the pun, with that comic from 1985, 6, 5 or 6 or whatever, Tiger Stripes. But that's okay. You would not be in the minority. I would on that. It was one of the most popular comics ever created. It was it changed the game, along with Watchmen in the 80s. Some would say not for the better. But I have a lot of problems with that, especially the Superman's portrayal and a lot of the writing in the comic. I was pretty nuts over it for the time when it came out, except for those elements of it. So, yeah, I like Mr. Miller on some things. But anyway, there you go, Tiger Stripes. You got me. Most people will agree with you, though. I don't know. Did you ever read that, Mike?
I didn't. No.
I was pretty big back then, of course.
Superman, no, I know. The Dark Knight Returns was a very, very big book. Big phenomenon. You couldn't spit and not see the cover of that book printed somewhere. It was gigantic. I'm not saying it wasn't good or anything like that. I'm going to be one of those people. I don't like that art style in that book.
I didn't either. And I've liked Miller's other stuff, but in that book, the problem was his Superman is a toady, he's a lackey of the government, he's a schmuck in the comic, and Miller made a big joke out of him, and I didn't appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't either, because they brought some of those overtones back when they did Hush, and Superman and Hush and all that stuff, and they also brought some of that back. I don't remember if they brought it back in Kingdom Come. No, I guess no. Not in Kingdom Come.
No, but some other stuff.
Yeah, and I also just think that the art style looked like some 80s drug addict drew an ash can comic, and I really don't like Dark Knight Returns as an entire package. I think it's one of the things that caused a major downfall for comics as an industry, because that was one of the things that started to compel them to turn away from their core audience of kids that had been with them for 50 years. And it's a really dumb thing to do when you throw away your guaranteed customers, because then 1 or 2 generations removed, and all of a sudden it's really hard to get those customers back. As Quark said in DS9, good customers are as rare as latinum. Treasure them,
Yep, one of the rules of acquisition. Troy, I'm absolutely, you're right. There are people who do forget that Dark Knight Returns was meant to be an Elseworlds story. It was really kind of the first Elseworlds book for them, and not canon. But I definitely am well aware of that. I still didn't like the way Superman was handled in it, and like what Michael's saying there. As much as I've liked Miller's stuff on occasion, I did not like Frank Miller's art. Yeah. In that book very much. I like the comic for the most part, but there are a lot of things I don't like about it. Mm-hmm. It's a classic. And now the worst thing is the sequel, Dark Knight 2 Electric Boogaloo from the in late 90s is one of the worst comics I've ever read in my life, and Miller should be ashamed of himself. It's that horrifically bad. Scott Dutson says Dark Knight Returns overall was fantastic. The problem is it did get some fundamental things wrong, and over the years, lesser writers have turned those things into holy writ. That is a very good point, Scott. Like Watchmen, it had a big effect on the comics, the entire medium at the time. It was the two. It sent the medium down directions that. Well, let's see. Miller didn't care, and Moore did. And Moore, who's maybe a nut and everything. Now, back then, he was pretty concerned about what he participated in and what he what he and Miller had done to the comic book medium or the art form. So that's about 5 other shows there. But yeah, so thank you, Scott. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know how much I love Watchmen, and yet, as much as I love Watchmen, is what Alan Moore is not a nut. That's another argument. The good grief. Well, Tiger Stripes, he says some nutty things. Look, I love his work. He's a nut. Sorry. Again, it's just an opinion, so I guess it's subjective, right? But Alan Moore is wacky. He says some wacky things. I have every piece of work he did in the 20th century. I have all of his stuff. I'm a fanatic for Alan Moore's work. I love him. Even though I do believe I do believe he's nutty. Again, I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek, but he says some really crazy things lately. But beside the point, I love his work. And I once thought about writing a book about all of his work. In fact, we've done a couple shows where I cover his less known work. So, and Tom says, I like some elements of Dark Knight, but let's be real, it did to comics what Scream did to horror films.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's an accurate assessment. You're not wrong.
No, absolutely, Tom. And it had. Hey, Orville Nation, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. So, what is Michael? What do you miss most about our beloved? Because again, like I said, these were just easier times. It was comfort for the soul, the way the pre-crisis Superman was to us. So
Right.
Getting back to the pre-crisis Superman, what do you think you miss most about those times?
Oh, well, I guess the one thing I would start with is that Superman and the other heroes in his universe, the DC universe at that time, I don't agree with some assessment that the stories then didn't challenge us. I think we were children, and so for me especially, those stories, while maybe not challenging to somebody at that time with a master's degree in Russian literature or something like that, for kids, those stories got us thinking. They got us imagining, greater possibilities. They got us interested in science fiction and reading in general. And what I miss from the pre-crisis era is that those characters could be relied on even when the situations around them went south. You always knew that you were going to read a story about Superman tackling a global or cosmic challenge to help innocent people. The question mark was always, what is this new conflict that he's facing? How dire is it? And what's it going to take for him to solve it? Superman himself, very, very rarely to never, was himself one of the problems for us to have to surmount. And that spoke to the DC universe's pantheon of gods nature of their stories and their characters, their cast, their roster. You could rely on those characters in those stories to remain consistent while they dealt with the inconsistency of each adventure every month. The stories themselves, some people would say, oh, they're repetitive. And it's like, well, maybe you feel that way because you're obsessed with the character feeling repetitive and you like characters changing all the time or whatever. I don't need every character in popular culture or literature or media to have a dark flaw, or to have a gambling addiction, or to have some kind of vice, because some characters need to be aspirational. And that's what I miss the most about the DC heroes. The DC heroes were aspirational characters. As much as I adore Spider-Man, I don't need to constantly be reminded that he also can't pay his bills. Fine for Spider-Man, but when you apply that to other characters like Superman and stuff like that, it takes away what made them special. Because now we feel like we're living in a time where people feel like it's their flaws that make them special. Well, defining flaws is the only thing that makes you special, is a very narrow worldview. I look at this and I say, well, I like a character that inspires me to reach for higher rungs of the ladder, just as much as I love a character that I can relate to. But we now live in a time where a lot of people don't want to even be there. People used to be inspired by these characters. Now they not only don't want to be inspired, they see being inspired by an aspirational character as being asked to do work on themselves, which I find funny, because it's like, I want a character that's going to be depicted as amazing, that has all of my flaws when I walk into the movie theater. So that way I'll walk out feeling like I'm amazing without having had to do any work or thought about myself. And I find that to be really effed up, because what is literature and media supposed to really be, if not, going all the way back to Campfire Tales, things to inspire us to be better people, and to reach for greater things, and to consider all the possibilities. And when I see characters like Superman and Batman debased, in modern media, down to, oh, well, we need to make them flawed so everybody can relate to them.
Yeah.
It's like, well, guess what, asshole? You've just missed the entire point of characters like Superman.
Exactly.
So that's what I miss the most about pre-crisis Superman, is that he inspired me in ways that the post-crisis Superman does not. The post-crisis Superman started out trying to be that character, even though the lore around him at first with the Byrne relaunch was different. The character at first was trying to be a Christopher Reeve for the modern late 80s or something like that. But it quickly went off the rails. It didn't stick around that way. So, and depending on what writer you had, era to era, and I think that's what I love the most about pre-crisis Superman, is the consistency of that character. I don't know how else to describe it. I feel like
well done, absolutely. Hey, Scuba Pete, what's up, buddy? Hey, Johnny Skinwalker, good to see you there. No, I totally get that, and I love what you said there. The aspirational part of Superman is what makes him Superman. Some people seem to think it's the superpowers. Well, obviously, superpowers and the costume, all those things make up a lot to do with it. But without the aspirational aspect component to it and the values that Superman represents, it's all hollow.
Yeah,
that's the core of the character. What it's about is sort of these are like parables for the responsible use of power. In other words, if you got such great power, how would your morals and ethics guide you to using them? Well, the whole point is, in superhero fiction, some people would put on some kind of costume and go out and just do things for themselves and steal and rob and do bad things and just work, be their own selfish person. That's called a supervillain. That's 70 show. What's up, buddy? Good to see you, rock fan. Great Flash show tonight, bud. The Flash Gordon show, that is. Anyway, whereas others would tend to put on that costume and go out and use that power to stop people like that and to protect people and save people. They're called superheroes. They're using their powers selflessly, dedicating them to the good of the good of all humankind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what very fundamentally, yes, it's a very simplistic, fundamental type of thing, the superhero fiction. And the best of them all is the king, the very first one, Superman, the most powerful one, the one who lives among us, looking like a human and living and acting like a human, even though he's from another planet, with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Um, his values that he was raised upon are the most important thing about him.
Mm-hmm.
You see Superman, and yes, he still has flaws. He's still he's a sentient being that makes mistakes too. He was raised as a human. Of course, he's going to make mistakes, but he never lets anybody outside of the people closest to him see them. He usually, when his public face is one of a smile and assuring people it's going to be okay. The whole thing about hope, when the fact when you hear that wish coming by that that you're in some kind of danger and you see Superman, you've been giving hope. You're being given hope that you're going to be okay. That's what it's all about with this character. That's why he will be a cornball character to some, because he rescues a cat out of a tree. But Superman cares about everybody, Jimmy.
Yeah, I never thought it. That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie that they took
I love
the
that
time
scene.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. No good.
No, I was just gonna say he didn't bother to try and save anybody in Man of Steel. So
Man of Steel, he just punched things, and that was just about him punching things and getting knocked into things and trying to. And again, remember, even another flawed premise in that movie is he was just fighting because he was attacked.
Right.
They were trying. They called him out. Superman would fight for anybody and try to save anybody, and that's what he's all about. He's about ideals. You don't project yourself onto him and drag him down into the sewer like idiots like Snyder and Goyer and those people do. You aspire to him. Richard Donner knew that going in. He said, this character is an icon. It's a legend. Let's treat him with respect. And Donner said this after seeing the stupid Mario Puzo script and a lot of the other things that they were talking about wanting to do with him. He says, let's treat this character with respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's a legend.
Yeah. He is an American icon of our literature, which compared to the long histories of other countries is quite brief. So,
yeah,
80 years. He is to be respected.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. 80. Now we're up to like 83 years. With the character, and the first 48 are the most important to me. That's pre-crisis, because it's funny if you think about that, because again, he's been around. That's that's about a little bit less than half of his existence, and that's the most important. That first 1938 to 1985 is the most important point for me, because everything that makes Superman what he is and makes me love him took place within that period.
Yeah.
Nothing after Crisis. I mean, does that mean I'm saying nothing good came? No. I loved Kingdom Come, because it was a story about Superman falling down and getting back up. It's Elseworlds. I love All-Star Superman. That's just a love letter to the proper Superman. And basically that was Morrison saying, if he'd stayed that same Superman that he was in the Gold and Silver Bronze Age, and it was like almost a leap over all the crap that happened to him after pre-crisis, and jump right to what he would be 30 years later if they had not put all that crap in him in between those two. And that's why I love All-Star Superman. And that's pretty much kind of how he described it. But everything important that makes the character of Superman, for me, the character that I love so much, happened in that stretch, in the pre-crisis stretch. Everything else is a guy running around in a Superman costume, and maybe they'll do something good sometimes, maybe they won't, but
I agree. It's the post-crisis Superman has kind of just in many ways, it is like in many ways, it's like Disney having bought Star Wars. Like it's even though I know it's still
Yeah.
under the ownership of the same company, but philosophically,
Yeah.
metaphorically, whatever you want to call it, you know, you had your golden age with the original trilogy. You had your wacky silver age with the prequels. You had your bronze age with the Clone Wars TV show and, you know, some other stuff. And then suddenly they sold it, and Disney tried to reset a bunch of stuff, and they're trying to retcon everything. And that's where Superman has been for, you know, almost 40 years now. And it's, you know, one reset after another, and one circle back and retcon this after another, and oh, let's try and transform this, and let's do that because we don't understand fundamentally how this character works, and we don't have a lot of faith in this character. And it's very obvious that, and maybe this will change with James Gunn on some level, but I ain't gonna hold my breath. It's very obvious that we are now living in a time where the type of people who understand and appreciate characters like Superman, they are, and I can tell you this with firsthand experience, are not the kind of people that get put into positions of decision making in corporations. Therefore, the people who are making decisions in corporations are the very type of people that not only don't understand a character like Superman, they abhor a character like Superman, and they don't respect him. And so
True.
This is going to be a very, very long wait to see what happens with this icon.
And the word legacy in the title scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, that gives me pause anyway.
Me too.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. I kind of do want. I mean, it kind of almost implies something, right? You know, almost implies that it's going to be passing it down, or I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Oh, well, if Tron Legacy was any indication.
Yeah.
You know, because we had to watch a Tron movie that didn't have Tron in it.
With no Tron in it. And people love that movie. I'm like, I hated it, man. I waited 28 years.
You know what they like? They like to get stoned and listen to the Daft Punk soundtrack.
Is that what it is?
And watch flashing lights. That movie is just like turn on the black lights in the house and the purple LEDs and put Tron on and get stoked and just watch, you know, watch that with some weed. Like that's why they love Tron. Anybody paying attention to Tron Legacy, right, knows that it's a listless movie with great visuals and good music, but no direction. There's no story narrative there that works.
A lot of people like it. I don't know. I mean, I was shocked how. I mean, by the way, which is fine, everybody, to like whatever you want to like. But I went to the theater to see that. I waited 28 years. I love Tron so much, the original film. Man, I waited 28 years to see a sequel, and I waited too long. And I go and say, well, what does this have to do with Tron?
Yeah. I love everybody's talking about the soundtrack, and I'm like,
people talk about the soundtrack.
I'm like, what did I just say? I just said that everybody only likes that movie for the soundtrack, but they think that because they like the soundtrack, they like the movie. Like, there's literally like there's three parts in that movie that are any good, and the rest of the film is just very, very impressive visual effects, but no logical story past a certain point.
Right.
Like I can draw. I wrote a whole article about this movie on my Facebook Retroblasting page like 10 years ago.
You did? Oh yeah.
And it was all about like there came a point at the beginning of the third act where the whole movie falls apart. The movie is fine until the third act. The movie would have been stellar all the way through if the third act had been correct. But the third act blew it. It blew all of it, like all of it. And so now the whole movie is like, as Harrison Ford said during the making of Raiders of the Lost Ark, just another useless experience. Like you know.
Wow. Look, I saw it the one time, never needed to see it again. Since I don't know anything about music, I hear people mention that soundtrack all the time. I couldn't tell you anything about it. I don't remember any
It's
of
a very good soundtrack. I'd take nothing away from
yeah.
Daft Punk, but
I hear.
a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they're those types that because they saw Tron Legacy and liked the music, they now see themselves as like lifelong Daft Punk fans. And I'm not a Daft Punk fan, so I'm not including myself in it, but and now they're like, oh yeah, Daft Punk's always been amazing. It's like, you didn't hear Daft Punk until you watched Tron. Give me a break. You know?
Dad man, what's up, buddy? Oh man, wow. So that's what Daft Punk is, because I don't know anything zero about them, and I guess I'll just have to be uncool that way. Because people do. In fact, recently when I started hearing people talk about Tron Legacy, they started mentioning Daft Punk now.
Yeah,
and I'm like, huh, who?
Yeah,
soundtrack. I was like, oh, there was a soundtrack. I don't remember any of it, but what do I know? I'm just an old Tolkien. I like the music in the first movie. What am I saying?
There should have been. I'm just going to go off on this for a second. I will reiterate this because Facebook nuked all the blogs 2 years ago. So all the blogs that I ever wrote on the Facebook page got nuked because they took away notes. Which thanks.
Oh yes, they did.
The Tron Legacy problem is that you got to have Tron in the movie. And while you see him in a flashback,
yeah,
and he's the only character that you see in the whole movie that can effectively fight Clue's army, his soldiers. He's the only one that can actually hold his own in that brief flashback. You get to a point in the third act where they do the vaguest of things and make you realize that Rinsler is actually Tron. But it's pointless because right as he figures that out, he literally crashes his mechanical pterodactyl and dies in the water or whatever. So it's like, well, thanks a lot for that. You just named this movie after a character that's literally not in the film. What they should have done at that moment is because that what the movie also doesn't have is an effective, momentous action catharsis. Like a moment for the audience where it builds to an epic level, right? Like in the first movie, as clunky as it might feel now, you have this epic moment at the end where oh gosh, not George Sanders, David Warner, where David Warner becomes this huge giant thing that Tron has to overcome, right? So in this movie, what has to happen is, and I wrote it out beat for beat in this thing. It was so clear to me after I saw the film. Tron, they snap him out of the thing. They figure out that he's Rinsler, and they snap him out of the thing. And I'm not gonna say it as well as I conveyed it in the blog, but you're just gonna have to go with me on this. And they're running for the portal. They're running for the exit. They're running for the whatever that's called, the data point, or where they beam out, whatever the thing is.
Right. And
that's when they encounter Tron, and Flynn is able to use his special abilities to decorrupt Tron. His son helps him from getting killed by Tron while he's doing it, because his son has already been shown to be really good at the light cycle races and at the disc challenges. So he can hold his own long enough against Tron with his dad helping him, for his dad to decorrupt him. And then in that moment, Clue shows up with his entire army. And they all know that they can't fight this. That you've already seen in the movie that his son nor Flynn can really hold their own against those soldiers. Like, that his soldiers are super dangerous, right? But Tron has already been seen in the flashback to be able to dispatch those guys like toast. And so Tron turns around, and Clue realizes that Tron has been decorrupted. And the line makes so much sense to me. All you have to do is have Clue say, Tron, you have one choice, and this if you don't choose to come back with me, you're a dead man, whatever. This is your one choice. And even though Tron is facing off against the entire Clue army, he just looks right at Clue and says, "I fight for the users." And then he tells them, go run. And we get to see this massive, awesome battle where Tron is literally taking on every single soldier of Clue's army at once, and he's kicking their ass.
Of course.
And then we cut away because we don't have to see Tron win or lose. As a matter of fact, that would have been a great way to set up the question mark for the next film, is they get to the portal because Tron holds off the entire army of Clue, because he's the only one that can do it, because he is the warrior program as was established in the first movie. That's the ending to Tron Legacy right there that should have happened, because then we would have gotten Tron, we would have gotten him in the most satisfying way possible, and it would have been a kick-ass ending to that film.
Indeed.
And we did not get that. We got nothing.
Of
Tron
course.
Legacy is a we were talking about Brandon Routh earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What a blown miss that was. So
same here. Hey, Classic Comics, good to see you, buddy. And Buddy Hepburn, hey there. Cool. Yeah, Captain Finity and beyond. What's up, buddy? Old pop friends popping in. Yeah, it's just such disappointment for me, man. Absolutely. Oh man, but I tell you what, it's great talking Superman with you. I mean, do you have any final thoughts or words about this character that we both love so much here than his birthday month? Because his fictional birthday is the 29th of February. Now, of course, there is no 29th this month, but what the hell, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me about the birth of Superman, because I always think June 1938, but then I remember that comics don't even come out on the month it's printed on the cover. So it's wait, what? I don't. Yeah. Okay, whatever.
Well, back then they probably did, but yeah, I hear you. At
right?
That point,
yeah. So yeah. I will always see Superman as an aspirational character, who inspires me to be a better person, and that is something that shouldn't ever be derided or devalued. And I want characters like that in my life just as much as I want well-written, characters with flaws. Like, I like Snake Plissken, I like Deadpool, I like Wolverine, I like these characters, but the characters that improve me as a human are characters like Superman. And that's what I miss from this character, and have not had it. I only get that when I go back before 1986. That occasionally in some of the other media, like some of the episodes of the animated series did pretty well with that aspect of this character. I'm not going to take that away from them. But by and large, aside from the DC animated universe, more or less, they've missed the mark. And so, yeah, that's my final thought on, pre-crisis Superman is somebody to look up to and be inspired by. And that's what Superman is supposed to be.
Absolutely. Again, that's my Superman. It will always be my Superman. I mean, this is 1938 to 1985 will always be where he starts and stops for me. Obviously, that doesn't mean every single thing after that era or that point is bad or wrong to me. Like I said, you mentioned the animated series. I've been binge watching that. There are things about it tough to watch, even though I like it, about how wimpy he is and gets the crap kicked out of him all the time. But there are things done with him later after that point. Usually not in the comics, but sometimes in comics that I still like and is still attracted to and all that kind of stuff. But he will forever exist in that pocket of from 38 to 85 for me personally.
Yeah,
that like something like 47, 48 years or whatever you want to say. This 86. That's just that's my Superman, where again everything done with him, right there in that era. So, but I love talking Superman with you, and man, love talking everything with you. We got to think of some more topics to talk about. I know we have our Our buddy Mark Dees just popped in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll add him to the stream there. So I knew you were going to do that.
Yes, I did that. Hey, Michael. Hey,
Hey, man, what's going on?
Hey, Clobberin. Yeah, doing great. Doing great. Yeah, great discussion tonight. Yeah, so
Thanks.
well, that's what got me into comics real quick. But the Superman, Superboy, the adventure comic we went over
we talked
last
about
week.
it the other night. I loved it.
My grandfather brought that comic home. It was Barbara Gordon got superpowers as a kid, and I told him, Grandpa, I don't want all the Richie Rich comics. Bring me Superman or superheroes. And that was, that's what got me into comics. And
Got Superboy. Yeah.
I have that's the greatest. What was it, the oversight or the Treasury? Superman's.
Right. Hey, Nick Weiser, what's up, buddy?
Yep. Hey, Nick Weiser.
I'm sorry, you faded out. I thought you were done.
No, I was trying to. Yeah, the best of DC Volume 1 with Superman on the cover, and that was Superman. Was it a Kurt Swan story? But those are some of the first comics that got me into collecting, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
Great character.
So Michael, I was going to ask you again. Now that we've covered Superman, again, I'm not going to keep you too long, man, because I know it's late for you and stuff like that. I wasn't going to keep you too long, but I was, about for the past couple of years now, we have kept up the speed with rank. We've done 2 shows where we ranked the MCU/MCU movies. How up to date are you on those now? Because there was a new one that came out this week. I already forget the name; it's so forgettable. But
Quantum Mania.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I know that one, but have you seen any of them recently or no?
The last thing I saw was whatever came out in the theaters before Black Panther 2. Whatever
Thor: Love and Blunder.
Yeah, that's the last one I've seen.
Well, I'm up to date and I've seen them all, and I have a new ranking. I've now officially ranked everybody. This is the official announcement.
Oh, here we go. Drum roll.
I may shock you with this, Michael. I actually, like somebody on this panel who chickened out, I actually sat through all of Wakanda Forever, Black Panther-less, as it should be called. As you know now, they're with the release of Quantum Mania, Anti, whatever it's called, Antifa Man, whatever. There are now 31 of these movies under the auspices of MCU/MCU. So, would you believe that when there were 30, my previous lowest number was Eternals? Would you believe I got something lower than that? I know you're shocked. Anyone be shocked if I got something lower than that?
I mean, I'm now on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what the lowest one is.
I've now got Black Panther-less. Wakanda Forever is the worst. I've got it number 33.
Number 30. Yep.
Ant-Man Quantum Waspia. It took me a while to settle this one in. I got it at number 22. And that's at 1.5 stars.
Wow.
Hey, Eric K, what's up, buddy? Thank you for that. He says Quantum Mania is the greatest Phase 5 film so far. So I've heard. I guess I have to concur with that. And by the way, I don't like it at all. That's how many of these movies are bad now.
Yeah.
So Eternals is your 28 or 29?
No, it's 30. Captain Marvel's 29. Love and Blunder's 28. Shang-Chi is 27. And so forth. But so 22, that means there are actually movies worse than this, but it's still terrible. But if you need some sleep though, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, the moment I saw some of the stills from Wakanda Forever, I was just crushed. I was like, I don't want to sit through this. And that was I've suffered the Eternals. I've suffered Black Widow. I have paid my dues through Thor: Love and Thunder. Like I have sat through just depressing levels of MCU garbage that I never thought they would sink to such lows. And when I saw the Wakanda Forever thing, I said, you know what? You have to decide when you're no longer going to be victimized. And I made the decision in that moment. I was like, nope. I cannot. I have no interest or inspiration in watching this movie ever. It's also going to be it will be the first Marvel film I will not buy when it comes out on disc, because I usually watch them on disc.
Okay, yeah.
And that'll be my first gap. I do not want to see that movie.
You're so lucky.
Well, it's the same for me. I mean, I can't remember why. I've got a buddy like Clobberin Times does. We go to every Marvel movie. I don't think we've missed one until that one. And I think I had something going on and I kind of didn't really, make an effort. And I'm like, when I saw what they were doing to Namor, and a long time comic book fan, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't take with the, and I skimmed through it on D- a little bit. I watched a couple of minutes in the beginning, and I skimmed, and then I just, when he started to speak, and I just turned it off. I mean, I couldn't even handle seeing what they did. I mean,
what they did to Namor is so horrible.
It's abysmal. I mean, there was no need to do that to such a great iconic character and just ruin his whole backstory and getting unfortunately Chadwick Boseman passed away in real life, but I think eventually they should have recast the character, because there's a lot of great Black Panther stories. Can you imagine if we're never going to get it, but a Black Panther Kirby tribute movie?
Would have been nice.
With a very, it's never going to happen, but just what they did to those characters. And look at Quantumania. They got, like, spoiler alert, the MODOK is a ruined character, and you're not going to see him again. So
absolutely ruined.
So you could have done something with MODOK, or had him be a major part of the movie instead of having him be the butt of joke. So
right,
it's depressing, actually. And just Wakanda forever. I can't believe it. I'm like you. I'm like, I don't want to watch. I never thought I'd say that.
You should force yourself to sit through all of it, since I had to at the theater, no less.
That's my buddy was
Cardinal
saying.
Sin, what's up, buddy?
Through it too. My buddy's like, you got to watch it.
However, I would not advocate either of you have to watch Ant-Man, like Michael. I mean, if you just catch it on a stream or something, I wouldn't be bothered buying the disc if I were you. Because even though I have it at 22, here's the movies it's ahead of. This is how bad this movie is. It's so bad, it's tough to remember. I have it at 22, but every movie I have beneath that, I can justify being worse. Because this is 1 star, 1 out of 5. That's my skills one. So everything at 22, I got Quantum Mania. 23, Iron Man 2. I think it's worse. 24, Black Panther. I think it's worse. 25, Iron Man 3. I think it's worse. Black Widow, easily worse. At 26, Shang-Chi, easily worse. At 27, Love and Blunder is worse. At 28, Captain Marvel is worse. At 29, Eternals is worse. At 30, and Wakanda Forever at 31. So it's dumb and lousy and dull and crappy as Ant-Man, Quantum, and the Wasp go to Quantum Crappia. Those movies are even worse or as bad. But some of them are as bad, some of them are as worse. What is that? I mean, man, and some movies they had before it aren't very good. So the gigantic percentage of the MCU now, with 31 movies under their belt, the percentage is bad of how many of these are actually good movies.
Yeah, it's they are now operating at a deficit with the quality of their output.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's I've been reading articles about how there's more people starting to subscribe to the theory that, hey, did anyone ever notice that when Paramount had the limited amount of characters they had, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and they were trying to set up their path to the Avengers right before Disney bought it, right as the first Avengers, got made or whatever, that the arguable quality of those films was, far better on an upswing than where we are now. And, their theory is that, a lot of those great films like Winter Soldier and stuff were riding off of the momentum that had been started with what they call the Paramount era of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There may be some merit to that. I don't know. So
could be. I'll tell you, I think it's just over.
Well, they haven't had it hit in a while, right? So
I'll put it to you like
Spider-Man.
Put it to you like this. Even I'm not going to. I would go see Guardians 3. But I'm not going to see Marvels. I will not. I'm going to tell my friend. I said, we've been to all of them. Let's break our record on this one, because It will have to be go as an asterisk, not on my list of ranked. I will not be able to rank it.
Uh-huh.
I can't. It looks. Oh no. No. Just
Not
Mark has to
happening.
go though. You gotta
Kamala
go.
Khan. I probably will go, or maybe
You
I don't
gotta
know.
go.
Even for that one, I mean, it's just what they did to those great characters too, and that Captain Marvel, the original Marvel, we're never going to get to see now, which is one of the great stories, and they're skipping ahead, instead of going back and sticking some of these old classic stories, they're fast forwarding. So it's like in DC, I heard James Gunn, he's going to skip past Tim Drake, and he's going to do not do Ra's al Ghul, and he's going to have what's the new Robin, Batman's evil son assassin. Damian, yeah. I heard they were going to bring Damian Wayne in. It's like, well, why would you go right to Damian? Tell all those great stories you have. Just like, Fantastic Four, unless they hire Clobberin times, it's not going to be a good movie. But that's going to be an epic disaster. Unfortunately, it's some of my favorite characters as well. So that's what's a bummer, because you've got all these great stories that they could adapt. We almost got with the Wolverine limited series was adapted, except for the third act that they messed up the third act on that, but it was a pretty decent movie and almost decent comic book adaptation. But I don't understand. They're clueless. They're trying to go with all this new stuff that no one bought and no one likes. Who wants a Riri Williams Iron Man? Or
I heard they put that on hold.
Yeah, because they're losing money, right?
That crap on hold.
Yeah, Marvel's is delayed for another 4 months. Yeah, Riri Williams is delayed, and then the Echo TV show, I guess, is delayed because these.
That did too. Echo, who wanted to see that crap?
Yeah, I mean, and they're spending these things cost a ton of money. So if you're not getting your, they are in business to make money, like you guys said. But
are they? I wonder.
Well, yeah, these days you wonder they're losing so much money. So
funny way of showing it that they want money, right? Oh man! But I tell you what, Michael, in a way, I guess it had to run out. I guess it had to run out of steam, but they sure didn't help themselves with it.
Right. Yeah, they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, and they can have it.
Yeah, totally.
They could have their damn movies. Oh my goodness. So, Michael, what's going on with Retroblasting now? What's going on with the channel? What do you got coming up? Anything you could tell anybody? Anybody about videos?
Right now, I'm working on some new videos. As always, I'm working on a video about a very strange Tomb Raider publication from the late '90s that I think should make for an interesting video. I'm also working on a big thought piece about, of all things, oddly enough, it's inspired by the MCU situation. So I'm working on that. It's called Benevolence versus Payback. And that'll probably get me a lot of flack from my subscribers. And then, but that's
you
just
like that
normal
way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm also trying to get everything ready to do some toy reviews and some Star Wars follies, and get this freeze chamber finally reviewed, because people have been waiting on this custom freeze chamber playset to get its follow-up video. So there's a lot that I'm working on. So
fantastic. Now I've already told you this, but I love Man-Child News is the funniest thing. I love it so much. It's hilarious.
Oh, thanks.
That was probably, I don't know how easy that is to make, or is that easy to make, or is that something?
It's about if I have the right images and stuff that are easy to get to, then it's usually like a 1-day turnaround type thing. Right. But it's an all-day 1-day turnaround, if you know what I mean. So it's they're fun to make as long as all the elements come together, pretty nicely.
It's hilarious though. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a quick video on YouTube, which I found out. Even when I try to, my videos are nowhere near like yours, when I try to do a review, and I'm like, it'll just take me a half hour, an hour. And then 3 hours later and editing and, that was a quick video, right?
Yeah, they are fun videos to make, but they can also be little hair pulling, because you got to find the stories of the month that lend themselves most to being amusing. Something you can say. Some people tell me when they see an edit, because I do one toward the end of every month. Some people are, they always come back. Why didn't you include this month? Because this thing happened too. And it's like, well, one, this is a jokey little newsreel. It's not a comprehensive kind of thing. Two, and this is where I get snarky with them, I know about that particular news story of November or whatever it is, and I just didn't think it lent itself to jokes as well as these others. So I didn't include it,
Monday morning quarterback, everybody. You got to say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, make your own video if you want to.
Yeah, make your own reel. Jeez,
Yeah. Everybody's a critic. I'm a critic too, but Jesus.
Yeah, what a novel approach. Make your own thing.
Make your own, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is always kind of funny to me. Like some of the people they've got to, I think it's fine if you say and make certain comments, I guess, but they always got to point out what you didn't do. Well, why didn't you put this in it? Well, maybe I didn't feel like putting it in there. I mean,
yeah.
I knew about it. It just wasn't that big of a deal to me.
Yep.
I mean, Jesus Christ. I don't know. People got to bitch about something. And I guess I'm guilty. I bitch about stuff too. But, no, I know y'all find that shocking. I never complain about anything, do I? No.
Is there gambling going on here too? I'm shocked.
Yeah. But, yeah, well, one of these days, I don't know. Maybe we probably, I was thinking about, I always say this, Michael. I was thinking we should do a deep dive on the Donner Cut one day, but we probably shouldn't. It's too depressing.
Tom is pulling his hair out of the chat.
Tom will get at me if I do that. Yeah, he likes that Donner Cut.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tom. Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Superman too. I love that experience as a little kid. My parents said we're going to take you to go see Superman, and we get to go to McDonald's tonight. It's one of my cherished memories. And my dad loved the movie. Like he took the whole family. So there's certain things where you like we were saying in the chat before, maybe the movie doesn't hold up as well. But what a great memory that was. I still remember going there that night with my parents, and my sister taking us to see Superman.
Mine was more traumatic.
You're older though. That was
That's true. Way older. I mean, I was pissed off. I mean, it was a weird experience for me because I walked out of the theater in denial. You ever walked out of a movie denying that it was bad because you just couldn't deal with the reality that it was bad?
Star Trek 5
as a kid. I walked out. Well, there you go. Because after Superman, the original, 78, seeing it like 18 times at the theater, there's no way that this movie that I waited for 3 years was going to be bad. It was not possible. No way.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm not really making a lot of noise. I was like, I'm just so happy to be here. It was the first night. I'm just happy that we're getting to see this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. I have something unrelated to say. Please finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, I've said it. I've told people this before, and I walked out going, no, it was great. I really loved it. And I had to go back the next night before I started getting really upset with it. But anyway, go ahead, man.
How many times did you see it?
4 or 5 before I convinced myself. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I was just going to say to Drew G, and if Troy Pacelli is still in the chat, Drew and Troy, thanks to Mike Alonzo, of all people, from his copious resharing of my Facebook blogs back in the day from the Retroblasting page, I have managed to find the Tron Legacy Facebook blog. Yes, sir.
How'd you find that? Because of me?
Because when I tried to search for Retroblasting and the word legacy, your name came up as having shared it, and then it had the thing underneath it. So
I try to share it all the time.
Thanks to you, we found the blog, which
man.
Facebook officially deleted access to them off the page. You can't get to notes anymore. But to Troy and Drew in the chat, I have uploaded that Tron Legacy blog post to the main Patreon page. So right now, if you want to go read that original blog note, whatever you want to call it, it is right there in its original form with all the photos and everything on Patreon. So enjoy. So
I had to, did they at some point I remember they deleted notes on there, right?
Yep.
And then that was where my Man of Steel review was. My epic hate, that everyone that I pissed off so many people about, like right after I went to the theater in 2013. And I couldn't find it for the longest time. I said, oh man, they got rid of it. But then a couple years back, right after I moved to YouTube, I found it again on there. For some reason, I don't know why they put it back up there. And so I was able to copy it and paste it. And then I did a video, like it took me an hour and a half to read my own stupid old review because it was so long. I wrote it. It was such a long review that I wrote.
Right.
And I'm going, I guess it's gone now, though. You're saying notes are gone now. So
yeah, they're gone. They're gone. But Facebook was like, well, we didn't delete the content, but now it's next to impossible to get a way to point to it. So you've got to do all these like dumb searches with like, and then filter by post, and then scroll forever, and then see if it comes up. And I just
that's a nightmare.
I did 3 different searches in the background, and I found it under one of your reshares that came up in the results. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad I saved this time. I saved my Man of Steel review, and it's a nightmare. I ought to probably stream it again since that was so long ago. I ought to
that'd be hilarious. That'd be hilarious.
I ought to torture it. Remember that review I wrote that was insane? Yeah, and I'm proud of it. I have it still.
I would love to revisit that.
It was a lot of fun, and I got so much crap over that review. And I went back. It had been since it was 2020, and it had been since 2013 since I wrote it. So I was reading some of it, going, okay, maybe some of this is a little harsh, so I may have to edit myself on some of it. And I read it in that stream I did, like in the middle of the day that nobody watched. I didn't have any viewers. I didn't really have any subs anyway. But I recorded it now. It's on the page, right, on the YouTube page. But there were a couple of times I would stop during the read. Okay, let me clarify this here or that here. But for the most part, I kept it, the same.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was I don't know. It pissed people off, which is what it was supposed to do. Actually, I'm kidding. I care about your feelings, everybody. Well, maybe not.
Well, that was a big topic of discussion in the comic book store the Monday after that movie. There were, people, a couple of the guys in the store going, that's not Superman. It's horrible. And other people, oh, but it was so dark and exciting. It was really gritty. It was great.
Edgelords.
There was a big fight there over, one of the guys that worked in this store is a big Superman fan, and he had the same point of view as you, Clobberin Times. Exactly. That's not Superman. We would have found out another way to defeat Zod. He wanted to snap his neck.
Oh my God, guys. Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't mean to interrupt, Mark, but okay. So this blog that I wrote was from 2013. Okay, I want to read you this. I want to read you this paragraph. Keeping this in mind, this is like 2013. Okay. Tron Legacy is all about Kevin Flynn, plain and simple. Hell, there are 2 Jeff Bridges in the film. It's not that Flynn isn't an interesting character, but I want to see a title character as much as I want to see the other main player. Tron Legacy would be like seeing a sequel to Return of the Jedi that completely focuses on Han Solo, and inexplicably Luke Skywalker is nowhere to be seen.
Wow.
Exactly.
Prescient. Yeah.
Wow.
That would have ever happened, right? Yeah.
I'm starting to feel like a pop culture Nostradamus right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, that's the way I was. I was so not into that movie.
Right. Yeah. Oh well.
Wow, dude.
A moment for the night. All right. Well,
are you going to repost that or something? Because I'm going to go read it.
I'm looking at it right now on Patreon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can send it to you, man. I've got it.
No, I can look at it on page. I can look at it. No,
I've got the link. I've got the link to the Facebook note. I've got the link to the Facebook note. You don't have to join the Patreon to do that, Mike.
I've already joined it. I'm a member.
Oh, you did?
That's not long ago.
I didn't know that. Well, thank you very much. Well, yeah, it's on the main Patreon.
Oh, yeah, man.
Page.
That's cool. I've been a member forever. But no,
you got to pay to read your own post.
Not forever.
Clobberin Times, right? Yeah.
For the longest time, I didn't even know you had one until back when I was, hey, wait a minute, he's got a, okay. And that was like, I don't know, a year or two ago, whatever it was, but maybe I was still something like that year. But dude, I'm so glad you came to hang out. What other kind of stuff can we think of to talk about next? Because Superman was my hook. I know you love Superman, so. But you're so busy, I always feel guilty about asking you on,
No, dude, I'd talk to you about anything. I'll talk to you, Mark,
Appreciate you,
about
man.
whatever you want to talk about. I'll now if it's something that I know nothing about, then I'll politely I'll admit it, and then I'll politely beg off and be like, it's all a joke, Mike. I really don't know anything about the.
So you're really not going to talk about the Super Bowl with us next week, then?
No, I'm definitely not talking.
I want
to
get your views on it. I want to see what you thought of that game. Now.
That you would rue the fact that I was asked on there, because I'd just be sitting there silent, like I don't.
Well, how did you like the commercials?
Yeah,
you didn't
right.
watch that either.
No,
I don't watch that crap.
No, but like I had to beg off. I had to beg off of a live stream because recently with some really good friends, because they were like, "Hey, we'd love to have you on for this topic." I'm trying to remember what it was. And I said, well, what era of the topic are you talking about? And they said, oh, the modern stuff. And I went, well, I don't know. I haven't watched any of that stuff. It was something about a TV show, I think. And I was like, I don't know anything about that. I would be useless. I would be taking up a seat on that stream. Right. And I was like, so, but yeah, like I know enough about enough things that I can brush up on certain things, but I will admit when there's just like a knowledge vacuum there where I don't even have a starting point.
I'm that way on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff, these streams, when like my boy Tom, when they talk about all the business stuff, I feel bad because I feel embarrassed to be on there because Tom's got a lot of great people that know that stuff. I don't know anything about that. So, but then again, he's got some great people that do. So,
right.
Yeah. I like the geekness. I just like cocking the geekness.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Geeking out. Plenty of things I don't know about. I don't comment on them.
Oh yeah.
Or we forget it, or we forget about too, right? I mean, that's unfortunately having read so many comics and say, as we get older, I don't know if it's there's less space in there, it's you forget things too. And then or especially if you're not up, I know you don't read new comics or things like that, and then people want to talk about, well, although most of them are not worthwhile to discuss, but yeah, so
yeah, I don't read any new crap.
Yep.
So I can't talk about the new stuff, which is fine. I'm not gonna brush up on that. I just don't care. I don't care. I like the old stuff.
But once in a while we'll get something good like the Alex Ross FF book that came out.
Yeah, and that new Avengers War Across Time by Paul Levitz and Alan Davis.
Yeah.
So far it's good. Well, Michael, dude, thank you so much for being here, buddy. I mean, I can't thank you enough. I always just have such a great time. Let's I'll think of something to get you back as soon as possible.
Hey, I'm always happy to come back on Clobberin Times.
Thanks, bro.
It's my second home.
So. Absolutely. Well, we've been, like I tell about, for those who don't know, we've been doing this. I've been doing this. You and I have been doing this since 2011, doing shows. So I'm on my show from the old days, and then
yeah.
So wow, since before you had the channel, which you've now had almost 11 years.
I know, it's crazy.
Holy
isn't
crap.
It? Wow. That's one of the reasons I hang on to the connection. Not just I hang on to the connection with you because you're an awesome guy, but one of the reasons I also hang on to the connection with you is because you've been doing this so much longer than I have. And I mean, look at your episode totals. I mean, like you're the OG. So I'm just glad to be invited onto the show.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate you. And of course, thanks, Mark, for hanging on. And thanks everybody here for coming on tonight. Let's see. Thank you, Eric K, Chris Persia, D Bud Martin, Lord Thoth, J-Man, Hungry Boy, Stephen A. Kal-El, Maddie's Daddy, and Phantom Outsider, those great wrenches. Appreciate you all. And thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. I really appreciate it. You've been fantastic. It's good to see you all. I cannot thank you enough for those who lurked, and you lurkers, appreciate you, and those watching on a download or a rewatch. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we're going to let you go now, and I'll be here. I'll be on with Tom, the great Tom's Midnight's Edge tomorrow night, Tuesday, 6 Central, and even on Thursdays over there. With Loki on the comic book roundtable on 7 p.m. My good buddy Loki on Wednesday nights, and I'll be back here on my channel 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for Wildcard Wednesday night. Funnily enough, on Wednesday, and of course, the Clubhouse will be in session 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday night, with Raquel and Mark. And
I look forward to that.
yeah, absolutely. And then Mark maybe hanging out at my good buddy Nick Weiser's channel over there at the 8:30 on Friday night for the Comic Shop Gang. And then, as always, Saturday Night Star Trek is here with 4 more episodes of Deep Space Nine being reviewed. So thank you all. It's been fantastic hanging out with you. You're a great audience. And I know, because I've been an audience. It's not easy being one. So take care, everybody.